Uh, Good evening. For the people standing in the back, we have a row of seats up here, and none of us on the dais are going to bite. So feel free to move on up, sit down where you can get a good look at the show. We're going to have some special events tonight. Are we ready back there, Tom? Okay. Okay. We're calling the meeting to order. Kelly, can we have roll call?
Yes, Councilmember Romack.
Here.
Vice Mayor Zabriskie.
Here.
Councilmember Klovstad.
Here.
I will note Mayor Pallavi and Councilmember Henderson is absent. Thank you.
Okay. Would you now all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America.
Okay, we're going to go through a series of presentations, then we're going to move on to consent items and then discussion items. So we'll start with 5.1. No?
Public comment?
Oh, you're right. We're going to do general public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to make a public comment and address the council on items that are not on tonight's agenda. We'd ask that you state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. We cannot take action on any general public comments, but we can certainly listen. We can ask staff to take action, refer the matter to staff to take action, or we might provide a brief answer or comment. Now, would anyone like to make a general public comment? If so, please come up to the podium right now. Okay, I don't see anyone moving towards the podium. Now let's move on to presentations. Kelly?
Yeah, I was going to present just a brief update on the election results. We have, hold on, bear with me one moment. So in Nevada County has received about half, or has gone through about half the ballots. They have gone through approximately 22,000, they processed 22,000 ballots and have approximately 46,000 left to process. That was as of, okay, they just updated it, I apologize. They've processed ballots, 34,000 ballots, and they have 30,000 remaining. It's taking them a little bit longer than normal to process their ballots due to a printing issue that's causing some extra steps to be taken with the scanners. Per the state, all counties are required to certify by December 3rd, so that's looking good. And then for Placer County has processed just over 200,000 ballots, and they have remaining approximately 31,000 ballots to go. You can get all this information. You can Google election results for both Nevada County and Placer County. And also Measure E is, those results just came in. It's coming in favor of yes for Measure E of 58% in favor of yes. So that's my brief update.
Thank you, Kelly. Now for item number 5.2, I would love it if the Truckee Laundry could join me over here at the podium for small business. Big applause.
Your volume's not working.
Okay. I want to begin by saying that local businesses are the backbone of our community. They're owned by our neighbors, people who live, work, and volunteer right alongside us. These businesses not only offer one-of-a-kind services, but they also contribute to the distinct character that makes our town feel like home. The impact of small local businesses goes beyond commerce. They help enrich the fabric of our everyday lives. The Small Business Big Applause Award is meant to honor and celebrate the incredible businesses that make our community so vibrant and special. This evening, the Truckee Town Council would like to recognize Truckee Laundry with a Small Business Big Applause Award. The Truckee Laundry is a hub of community connection. It advances a town council priority of community cohesion. By welcoming patrons to a bright and safe space for a routine task, Truckee Laundry serves as a vital thread in the tapestry of our community for so many. From contributing their services to support those in need, to being a grounding space to see familiar faces week to week, Truckee Laundry exemplifies a hometown business that goes the extra mile. Thank you, Truckee Laundry, for contributing to the advancement of community connectivity and for so much more. I would like to, and now I'd just like to present the plaque to the Truckee Laundry and have them, if they will, say a few words for all of us. Who would like to accept the plaque?
I'll accept it. I'll be short like myself. This is truly awesome, and I just want to. This is truly awesome, and I just want to thank everybody, thank the town, and we really appreciate it. And obviously, we just enjoy showing up to work every day. Thank you very much.
Okay, you can't leave yet.
Oh, wait. I do want to say that my name is Scott Ferguson. This is my lovely wife, Linda Ferguson. My partner, Aaron Harris. Y'all know. And, sorry about that. And Kim Harris. So, thank you.
I think we want to take a picture. We want to take a quick picture up here in front. Now we're going to move on to item 5.3, which is a little different. And this is expressing gratitude. And it is my pleasure to continue the direction or the tradition of this council that was started 3 years ago, celebrating Gratitude Month and recognizing key groups and members of our community that have stood out in this past year. It's quite amazing to view life through the lens of gratitude. Of course, there are always things we wish we could change or obtain, or flaws that we can easily point out in ourselves or others. But when we stop to listen, gratitude rings loud and clear. It's an essential part of living a happy and fulfilled life. It helps us appreciate the good things and the people who improve our life and the gifts around us. We are a community full of volunteers, organizations, and other members that contribute so much and help make Truckee what we are today. It is one of the values unique to a smaller town, but also what makes it so hard to pick the one group or community member that has stood out in the past year. As hard as that is, we believe it's important to express our gratitude and recognize members of our community for their service and their commitment to our children, our lands, our values and character, because as the old saying goes, those that forget the language of gratitude can never speak in terms of happiness. Before the other council members and I make our presentations, I'll explain the elements of the gratitude symbol that you see on the screens on each side of me. The universal gratitude symbol has two main parts, a simple spiral center and three circular dots on the lower exterior of the spiral. A third part, resembling a hook, is at the bottom. The perfect circle is the core of the gratitude symbol with a spiral in the center symbolizing the circle of life and the constant changes that life presents us, which when thought of in the context of gratitude is about giving thanks for what you have in your personal growth. The series of three dots, which is often recognized as an ellipsis, has two meanings. First, for taking further thought or action. This symbolism closely relates to gratitude as a practice always seeks to find things to be grateful for. Secondly, it represents an infinite list. A gratitude list can be truly infinite, for there is always something to be grateful for, and our list of things in which to find gratitude is an infinite number. Lastly, the hook at the bottom of the gratitude symbol closely resembles another symbol called Macau, which represents strength, energy, and abundance. The Macau symbol fits perfectly within the gratitude symbol, as gratitude helps us increase the power of our happiness, giving us emotional strength and energy. This symbol is a powerful representation of gratitude, evoking a sense of appreciation and thankfulness for the good things in our lives. While its meaning may differ from person to person, its purpose remains the same, to remind us of the gifts we possess and encourage us to cultivate a more grateful mindset. By simply gazing upon the symbol of gratitude, we can remind ourselves to pause, reflect, and share our gratitude. Well, so now it's time for council members to move over by the podium. And could we start with you, Council Member Klofstad?
So I would like the entire team that is here tonight for the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation to come join me at the podium. Please don't be shy. I know there's a lot of you here, so please come and join me. Wonderful. Look at this. Okay, I do have a few remarks. And then we do also have a little video from Stacy Caldwell, their intrepid leader or executive director. And I believe we have a board member, Kelly. Oh, great. Okay, so I chose the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation because this organization, to me, epitomizes leadership and integrity in our region. Every week, it seems that they're meeting with town staff or attending a community meeting or a partner meeting on a number of programs that are vital to our region. And I'll talk about just a few because honestly, otherwise I'd be here for an hour. So there's three main ones that I want to highlight tonight. Their work in workforce housing really literally changed the way we see this issue, and most importantly, how we have come together to address it as a community. So first, this started way back with the Workforce Housing Agency, but then Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation really cultivated this in the Mountain Housing Council. And now with the JPA, this work continues. So thanks to the TCCF, in their Mountain Housing Council report, we all learned the rainbow image of how our how our workforce housing and our housing needs are stratified in a bridge and a rainbow image. And after that, our community was able to really understand the needs of this topic, and supported 2 sustainable funding sources with TBID and with Measure K to help us impact in a positive way what our community needs were. So now we have collaborated with TTCF on some extraordinary programs and grants and policies to create lasting and meaningful change in this arena. And many, many critical members of our community are now being housed because of their work. And that is the most important thing. The Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation has done some extraordinary work also in forest health management. And this has matched their influence in workforce housing, I believe. Years ago, before I even was a candidate, I was attending their Forest Future salons. And this has created a massive shift in how our community understands the forest that we cohabitate in, and the history of what we've done to it. They continue to revolutionize the discussions on this topic, going literally boldly where the town and other public agencies might not be able to go. They're creating a full circle economy around the forest health by creating jobs and supporting an eco-friendly approach to this industry. And as an example of that, they just recently gave $1 million grant from the Forest Futures campaign, which is leveraging $3 million from CAL FIRE and USDA to build California's first cross-laminated timber facility. I mean, this is extraordinary work. And then the third one I'll talk about is the Community Collaborative. And they've just deployed a 5-part community belonging training series intended for public agency partners, nonprofit staffs, and all types of board members in our region and the community. And this work focuses on creating community engagement, equity, and belonging in our nonprofit organizations, and building equity and literacy in DEI principles that create actionable insights. And right now, our community needs this deeply. I know I do. So, as I said, there's so much more to talk about in what the Community Foundation does. This is just the tip of their iceberg. I hope you go to their website and check out their recent impact report. It's really exciting to see all the areas of influence this small but mighty organization has on our region. So to all the board members, all the staff members, all the volunteers, I am honored to express my deepest gratitude for your work, and please accept this gratitude award.
We'll let Stacy go first.
Okay, we're going to hear from Stacy Caldwell.
Hi, I'm Stacy Caldwell, the CEO of the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, and our mission is to bring together trusted partners to align strategy and inspire philanthropy for a more resilient community and environment. And what that means is what is important to the community is important to us. And that oftentimes has us focused on things that are more complicated than any one organization can fix. And so that finds us in the room with so many of our partners out in the community, including the town of Truckee. This work is hard. It takes time. It takes grit, and it takes a lot of trust. And we are so grateful for the recognition of this mission in our community. So on behalf of our board and staff of the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, thank you so much for elevating our work and recognizing us this evening. I'm sorry I can't be there to hug everybody's neck, but it's just wonderful, and let's keep going ever forward. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelly Carroll. I am the current board chair. You see the lineup of wonderful people who make all of this possible. I get the spotlight because I was silly enough to be elected chair, but I'm speaking for all of them. As you know, TTCF has served our region for 26 years, and we've tried during that time to stay close to what the community wants and needs, and to, as Stacy and Councilmember Klofstad both noted, to try to better this place that we all love. TTCF is more than just a single organization. We're more than the people who are currently on the board and staff. We have people stretching back 26 years, and I don't doubt that we'll have people stretching forward at least another 26 years to continue the mission that we are working on, that changes year by year, month by month, need by need. We are very excited that we have so many people who are willing to assist us, so many organizations that we work with, that we partner with, including the town of Truckee. And on behalf of the entire organization, thank you very much for giving us this award.
Thank you, Director Kelly Carroll. Now we'll all come to the front and take a photo.
Okay, thank you. Now I'd like it if the Truckee Trails Foundation and the Dirt Union, if they could come up to the podium. Mayor Polivy had an unavoidable scheduling conflict, but what he did do in honor of both the Truckee Trails Foundation and the Dirt Union is prepare a video, which we will play now.
Hey everybody, thanks for being here tonight. I'm here ready to go mountain biking, but not actually on these trails. And that's because there is a really awesome wildfire health and resilience partnership that happened this summer here at the bottom of the El Burro and Donkeytown Trail Network. And I'm here to honor the Truckee Dirt Union and Truckee Trails Foundation for all their amazing communications and outreach and stewardship of some of the trails in and around Truckee all summer long. First and foremost, as we all know, Truckee is an amazing community and we have amazing recreational amenities, and this trail network is just one of them. But it's also outside of the town boundaries for the town of Truckee, and it's so important that we work with different organizations to really enhance our surroundings and make sure that trail networks like this are taken care of. And you know the best part about all of the trails in Truckee, whether they're paved or on dirt? It doesn't matter what you do on them. You can be a mountain biker, a hiker, a trail runner. You can just even go and walk your dog. Like Gracie here. We go out and we enjoy the trails every day together because she needs her walks, I need my walks or runs or hikes. And it's with all the cooperation of all of our great organizations that we're able to make these trails multi-use trails for everybody to enjoy. All right, and now we're back to the real reason why we're here tonight, and that's for the Gratitude Awards. And I'm proud to present my Gratitude Award to the Truckee Dirt Union and Truckee Trails Foundation for all the amazing trail building, trail stewardship, and most importantly, recreation communication that they were able to accomplish this spring and summer. Over here, just on this trail network alone, there were over 28,000 laps digitally tracked in 2023 by the Truckee Dirt Union. Over in the Sawtooth area, the Truckee Trails Foundation has built countless miles of new trails and decommissioned old, eroded trails. And over at JP's at the state parks, the Truckee Dirt Union has been able to revamp an old historic trail back there as well. And we all know the great work that Truckee Trails does, specifically advocating for bike lanes and more pedestrian and bike infrastructure on the Legacy Trail and throughout all of our infrastructure corridors. I'm super proud and grateful to these organizations, not just for the recreational opportunities and stewardship that they provide, but for recognizing that forest health and forest resilience is also an important community priority. It's important for our community, our visitors, and our residents to all know what's going on in our recreational ecosystem, what's happening in our trail network, and to understand where trail closures exist and why they exist. And I want to recognize both of these organizations for the amazing work that they did this spring and summer in messaging this incredible trail closure, which impacted a ton of actual users. Let's look at the numbers really quickly. In 2023 alone, the Truckee Dirt Union tracked 28,800 laps just on the Donkeytown Trail. That means there were 186 average daily laps. They also have a volunteer trail force of over 800 people, and approximately 7,500 community stewardship hours were generated since 2020 on public lands. It's without partnerships, not just between the Truckee Dirt Union and Truckee Trails Foundation, but our U.S. Forest Service, the National Forest Foundation, California State Parks, the town of Truckee, Placer County, and everybody, Nevada County, and everybody else involved. That amazing recreation exists in our region, and we can have such gratitude for the work that our local organizations are doing with the help of their volunteers and their paid staff to make projects like this possible and to create healthy communities so that we're able to prosper well into the future. Once again, thank you, Truckee Dirt Union, Truckee Trails Foundation. I appreciate you both, and I'm very gracious to all the work you do in our community.
Well, thank you, David. Seems like he was right here in the room. That was wonderful. On behalf of David Polivy and Mayor Polivy and the rest of us, thank you to the Truckee Trails Foundation and the Dirt Union for your coordination with the Donkeytown Trail and for your continued advocacy and partnership with the town and the regional trail system. Now, I would love it if one of you or several of you went ahead and just spoke for a bit. Maybe start with Truckee Trails Foundation. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
yeah.
Hi there, I'm Jack Macy. I'm president of the board of the Truckee Trails Foundation, and I want to say thank you to the town council as well as the town and all of our land partners and trail use partners like the Dirt Union who have helped us continue to reach for our mission of building a world-class trail network that supports this community both from a health perspective, an enjoyment and fun perspective. We have hundreds of miles of trails that get thousands of users every day, and it is one of our greatest assets here that makes living in a place that has such a wonderful outdoor and close to the forest environment that makes it so special for all of us. And just want to thank the rest of our board members and some of our staff for being here as well. So thank you.
And would anyone from the Dirt Union like to speak? Great. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Matt Chappell. I recognize many faces in the audience, and I can't describe how stoked we are to be here today alongside Truckee Trails Foundation. We created this idea 4.5 years ago, or really over 4.5 years ago, potentially 20 and 25 and 30 years ago, from conversations in the community that have been recurring, filling this resource labor gap and sort of channeling the stewardship energy in our community and proactively inputting it into our trail networks that we most covet. And that's why we're here today. This is a big win, or a big moment to celebrate for the Truckee Dirt Union. And I want to thank all of you for supporting the Truckee Community Stewardship Initiative to create positive outcomes for mountain biking. We really appreciate this award and are super grateful. Thank you.
Okay, don't sneak away. If we could have you come up in front of the dais and we can take a quick picture. What's that? Yes. Dirt Union, trails. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, now Council Member Lindsay Romack will make her presentation to the Found It Foundation. Or Find It. Found it. Still finding it.
Send It Foundation.
Send it. Thank you.
And I apologize, no outfit changes for me. I'm jealous of Mayor Pallavi. Have to work on that. But if you guys want to come up. I'm excited today to share a little bit about the Send It Foundation and recognize this fantastic local organization in our community. I wanted to read you what's at the top of their website. No one knows what tomorrow will bring. That's why we send it every day. I feel like that is so true why many of us live in Truckee. We just heard about the great natural environment we get to play in. And, we go big or go home. We send it. We live a big life here in Truckee. And this foundation does incredible things for folks in our community that are fighting cancer. The Send It Foundation was founded by Jamie Scow, a Truckee resident who in 2012 was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. He didn't know how many tomorrows he had left, and so he wanted to send it and made sure he was living his life to the fullest and celebrating everything about Truckee. And he realized he wanted to leave a lasting legacy. And so before he passed away in 2014, he founded the Send It Foundation. So the Send It Foundation, very excited and honored to recognize them for celebrating 10 years of helping out community members, inspiring them, and living out their biggest life. The Send It Foundation's mission is inspiring positivity, courage, and gratitude in young adult cancer fighters and survivors through the gift of outdoor adventure and community. The Send It Foundation brings folks out on adventures, skiing, biking, climbing, hiking, and surfing through our area and other places throughout California to, again, bring positiveness as they are facing a daunting task before them. And it's very exciting in the 10 years that the Send It Foundation has been around. They've led more than 600 adventure experiences, again, to these young adults who are facing this diagnosis. And I saw on their website, and maybe Julia can elaborate, they have a wait list right now of 700 folks. So there are a lot of community members that they are looking to serve, so you can always visit senditfoundation.org if you're interested in learning more or helping out. But very excited to honor the Send It Foundation today. You may have seen them out at some of their events in September. They always celebrate September and had events doing yoga, drinking beer, and some of the other activities we love to do in Truckee. So it's a great opportunity to bring the community together and celebrate. So happy to honor today the Send It Foundation. And Julia, invite you to say a few words.
Thank you so much to Lindsay and to everyone at the town for this recognition. It feels incredible to take a step back and reflect on that it's been 10 years and really feels so much gratitude. We're a small but mighty team, so that's why there's only 2 of us that are able to be here tonight. Everyone else is out sending it, presumably. But as Lindsay mentioned, for 10 years, we've been bringing outdoor adventure experiences to young adults facing cancer. And this community of Truckee and the greater Tahoe area has been truly critical to making this possible. I think everyone here would agree our backdrop of the Sierras sets the foundation for healing and empowering experiences for these young people, and perhaps importantly facilitates the ability to find connection and community with others who are going through the experiences that they are. I'd actually like to invite Lee Donlin, our program coordinator, to share a little bit more about the actual experience of what being a part of the Send It family and on a Send It program is like.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lee Donlin, and I'm a program coordinator for Send It, as well as a trip leader. But before all of that, I was a Send It participant myself. So I can speak to the meaning and impact of these trips, and I'm deeply grateful for everyone's support in making these possible for our community. And now as a leader on Send It trips, it's a great honor and joy of mine to be able to witness firsthand the camaraderie and connection that is experienced on the Send It trips. And on a memory that comes to mind recently is from our past June trip of rock climbing and mountain biking. Our group was at the Sawtooth Trailhead, and I had led our group down one of the trails, Happy Face, and was waiting down at the bottom. And you could hear the shouts and the laughter and joy coming from everyone well before you could see them rounding the corner on the trail. And just the stoke and the smile on everyone's face and the community and the connections that was made is what makes these trips so impactful. And that couldn't be done without all of our partners and this community here. So we're deeply grateful for all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
I had a picture.
We have 2 more gratitude presentations, and then we're going to take a 15-minute break. So I hope everyone sticks around for the break. Next, I would like to call up Deirdre Henderson. Hi, Deirdre. My remarks are brief. So much of our community's future's well-being depends not on the actions of local government, but on the devoted efforts of our nonprofit organizations and individual activists, as you've just seen with the last 3 presentations. I have selected Deirdre Henderson to express my gratitude because she personifies what we hope to see in those who advocate for a stronger community and a better tomorrow. She participates in community affairs with constancy, conviction, and an open mind for what other people have to say. She speaks without guile, and the clarity of her reasoning more than makes up for the softness of her voice. Deirdre is best known for her tireless leadership of the local chapter of the Citizens Climate Lobby, an organization reliant on volunteers devoted to reducing global carbon emissions through national and local action. Yesterday, the commencement of the annual UN Climate Change Conference was marked by news that 2024 will be the first year that the average world temperature will exceed pre-industrial levels by 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's about 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit. The rising average temperatures are especially ominous for Truckee, since our economy and our personal enjoyment depend on our existing natural environment and not on what global warming portends for our future. So in expressing my gratitude for Deirdre's efforts to help turn this tide, I encourage us to support all who, like Deirdre, are working to make our future brighter and better for the generations that will follow us. So Deirdre, I want to thank you for all of your efforts. And if you could say just maybe a few words.
I really appreciate this and this thoughtful ceremony. Gratitude is one of the core values of Citizens Climate Lobby. And I would be remiss if I didn't express my gratitude and respect and appreciation for the many others in this amazing community who work to build political will for solutions to climate change. As I'm sure you recognize, in the past week, our work has become harder, but it is even more important. We've always been in this for the long run, expecting victories and setbacks. And we're not going away because our children and grandchildren and future generations are counting on us. Thank you.
Do a picture? That's good. Courtney Henderson also had a conflict with tonight's meeting, but she also did a video for her presentation. And so I would like to invite up Inner Rhythms, the group who will be the recipient of the gratitude from Courtney.
Hi everyone, this is Courtney Henderson, Truckee Town Council member. Today, I have the unique honor of sharing my gratitude for Inner Rhythms with the rest of our community. I was first introduced to Inner Rhythms by board member Christy Oriel, who recruited me to dance as part of their Dancing with Our Sierra Stars annual fundraiser. I had the privilege of dancing the cha-cha in front of 200 people, all while raising funds for this amazing organization. Since that first introduction, I have come to know Inner Rhythms as an organization and as a community much more deeply. These are folks who truly care about community connection, about cultivating community and cultivating that connection in all that they do. This is so incredibly important in today's age as we face increasing societal fractures and challenges. So today, I'm honoring Inner Rhythms for their tireless work, for their commitment to community connection and to inclusivity. Their work directly aligns with our council goal to build community connections. I want to highlight a few specific examples of the programming that Inner Rhythms offers. First, a wide range of dance classes for community members young and old from all backgrounds. Inner Rhythms doesn't turn away students who can't afford to dance. Instead, they provide scholarships so that everyone who wants to dance is able to follow their dreams. Several free classes, including classes for seniors, patients with Parkinson's, and as you'll see tonight, inclusive dance. Scholarships and pathways to higher education. Inner Rhythms provides scholarships to students who are graduating from high school and want to head out to college and pursue a dance career. This is particularly important for male dancers in our community who remain underrepresented within dance. Professional development. Inner Rhythms offers robust instructional programming to build out the pipeline of a future generation of dance instructors. And finally, they give back to our community through performances at numerous community events throughout the year. They bring love, light, movement, joy, and dance to so many at these different events. There are many well-documented benefits to dance. Cardiovascular health, improved muscle strength, stamina, flexibility, balance, and coordination, and also mental health benefits, stress relief, self-expression, and a fundamental sense of community. Inner Rhythms provides this and more to the more than 200 students who walk through their doors on a monthly basis. I am deeply grateful to board member Christy Oriel, who first introduced me to Inner Rhythms. I am grateful to Sarah Fay, Executive Director, who works tirelessly to bring students into the studio and ensure good experiences. I'm grateful to the entire board for their commitment and pursuit of their mission and vision. I also want to thank Eric Ventura, one of the dance instructors who leads the inclusive dance class and many others at the studio, and who will be leading the team in a performance this evening. He is a true ray of sunshine, welcoming everyone into the dance studio and making them feel safe. Finally, thank you to all of the students and families who create this community, who show up every day, smiles on faces, ready to share a beautiful space and a beautiful opportunity with others. Thank you for all that you do. Your work truly sets an example for the rest of our community to live by.
On behalf of Council Member Henderson, thank you, Inner Rhythms, for your service to our community. And maybe someone would like to say a few words, and then I understand we will have a special performance.
Thank you so much. It's our honor to accept this recognition tonight. We really appreciate it. It also really warms my heart that after 2 years of being closed during COVID, Inner Rhythms was a casualty of COVID. Like a lot of businesses, we had to completely shutter and didn't know we were going to be able to reopen, but we were able to reboot and reopen, and it's great that we're finally thriving again and growing, and have introduced a lot of free classes to the community in addition to our regular dance curriculum. As Courtney mentioned, we have free dance for patients with Parkinson's disease. That is a new class for us. We also have a free class for senior citizens. And tonight you're going to see a performance from one of our other free community classes. We call it Inclusive, and it's a class specially designed for adults with mixed abilities. And Eric Ventura is going to say a couple words about that too now. So thank you again so much, and thank you for recognizing us.
My name is Eric Ventura. Instead of giving a speech, we decided to show you what we do. So I'm going to invite my class on out. We are also going to get you guys to participate in this performance. So, what I want you guys all to do is take a deep breath in. I want you to say, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Oh, that was not fair. Deep breath in. Hey, hey, hey. You guys ready? Yeah. Okay. So what we just taught you guys was a nice exercise in breath work. So as Courtney was saying, we not only teach health, what you guys did was breath work. So it allows oxygen to the brain. And then it also helps uplift emotion. So as we are dancing, I'm going to encourage you guys as you say, hey, 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 you guys can join us. Good? Yep. All right, here we go, you guys. And I will say that these dancers all chose this routine to bring to you guys, so they are very, very excited.
I said, put me in the game, put me in the game. Hey, hey, hey. I said, put me in the game. Watch me build a dynasty like Jerry Dane. Yeah. Man up, stand up. We say, hey, hey. Stand up, man up. Hey, hey. Man up, stand up. Man up, hey, hey. Man up, man up. Stand up. Hey, hey. You in the way, get out the way. We got some moves to make. You taking no risks, you get the reward. Trying to make me a play. Man up, stand up. Man up, hey, hey. Man up, stand up. Man up, man up, stand up. Man up, man up, man up, stand up. Young, been fly beyond it. Baby, let's be honest. We speed race to the promise. Put me in the game. And watch me build a dynasty like Jerry.
Okay, can you just come up to the, back up in front of the dais and we'll get a picture of the inner rhythms? We're going to come back down to earth for just a minute, and then we'll take a break. Of course, always being grateful does not mean that one would deny the fact that negative things do happen. It means finding focus on things and more on the good. It means finding something to be grateful for amid bitterness and hardship. As we walk through the month of November together as a community, I encourage all of us to reflect on the things that we can be grateful for, including the fact that we get to call Truckee and the Tahoe region our home. November is filled with opportunities to carry an attitude of gratitude, such as yesterday's Veterans Day celebration, where we honored the veterans and service members who fight for our country. to the point of pain, the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our way of life. Tomorrow, November 13th, is World Kindness Day, where we are especially encouraged to spread kindness within our community as a means of demonstrating gratitude. And of course, there's always Thanksgiving, the perfect opportunity to reflect on the positive gifts in our life. So, thank you to the Community Foundation, Deirdre Henderson, the Truckee Dirt Union, Truckee Trails Foundation, Send It Foundation, and Inner Rhythms. On behalf of the Town Council and Town of Truckee, we are grateful for your service to our community. And it's wonderful to see how varied these different groups are. I mean, going from the Truckee Laundry through every one of these recipients of gratitude. It shows how deep our commitment and sense of community is, how varied and diverse we are, and how we are all able to come together. It's pretty wonderful. But now it's time for a recess. We're going to take 15 minutes for cookies and refreshments in the back of the room, and the rest of you can celebrate. After that, all the three of us come back to the dais.
is important. No, that's true. That's true.
I don't think my purse is here.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
I can just imagine adjustments and moving on the fly and rolling with punches and difficult people, but
Okay, everyone's welcome to take a seat or slip on out the door. Okay, we're reconvening the meeting after the recess. We're going to take one public comment on the gratitude out of order, a little in advance, but it relates specifically to this item. So if Siobhan would come to the podium.
First of all, Siobhan Smart, I apologize for being late, but this is my favorite time to come, and this will come as a shock to some, but I have to give a huge shout out to the town of Truckee. You guys did an amazing job. Kelly, to Truckee police who helped break into the park or to the Veterans Hall. Yep, it was locked, and the cop showed up and said, "We can break in for you." Yes. So your people were amazing. It wasn't a real break-in, Chief. It was the lockbox. So really quickly, Veterans is my favorite event. We had almost 100 veterans there, and I want to thank Donna Taylor, Tara Vaughn, Mike Vaughn, Tina Cutler, Kim Furtado, Elin and Harrison, both of her kids, our Civil Air Patrol, Dahlia Cohen, Ryan Schumacher, John Schumacher, Jedediah Beers, Maggie Schumacher, and Sheila Haidar. Just for all of the folks who showed up, the veterans, when they walked in and there were flags and flowers, and it was stunning, and it was such a well-received event. And just to town staff, all of the work that goes into just getting it done, my heart is full of thanks for every single person who helped. So thank you for that. And thank you for allowing me, and I'm so sorry for being late. Okay, thank you.
Yep. It's all part of the gratitude, and we should also thank Siobhan and her crew for providing the meals for the luncheon at Veterans Day at the Veterans Hall. Okay, now we're going to move on to item 5.4. This will be the town manager's report. Jen?
I'm going to do employee incentive awards first, and then we'll do the town manager's report. So for anybody that's not aware, we do these every quarter at the town, and this is where employees can nominate and recognize their colleagues for some amazing work that they've done that was really standout work. We presented these to the employees last week at our all-employee meeting. And first, we have James from our Emergency Management Division. He nominated Braun Roberts for her teamwork and commitment. And this is what James had to say about Braun. When the past fire erupted on Sunday, August 11th, Braun instantly began to support the important effort of ensuring our community members were informed of the danger by working directly with the local media, updating the town's website, and sending social media updates. As the incident and evening progressed, a new fire started near her home, threatening her neighborhood and cutting her power. She continued to support emergency communications for both the past fire and the widespread power outage that also impacted the town. Even during trying times for Braun and her family, she continued to show her commitment to the public safety and to the town's team. Braun is a mighty powerhouse of one in our community communications division, so thank you, Braun. Connie Knuckles was nominated for her excellence, commitment, and teamwork, and Connie was nominated by Brittany Johansson. Connie is being recognized for her outstanding excellence, commitment, and teamwork. Truckee's downtown parking district spans 1.5 miles, housing over 50 parking pay stations and serving hundreds of customers daily. This spring, the Transit and Police Department's Support Services Division prioritized improvements to the district. Key goals included reducing the number of pay stations and upgrading their technology to enhance customer experience and enforcement. After successfully testing a new pay station, it was recommended to standardize all meters and assess existing equipment to promote sustainability and save funds. In August, Connie played a crucial role in evaluating the pay stations, carefully photographing and assessing each location. Her meticulous work and helped ensure the project was completed efficiently, allowing the upgrade plan to progress swiftly. Thank you, Connie, for your continued dedication and willingness to help. Next, we have Slater Stewart, who was nominated by Scott. While maintaining the 2024 paving and drainage project this summer, it's a $5+ million contract, Slater ran into unexpected challenges while preparing to repave the planned portion of the Legacy Trail. Slater was notified by one of the utility providers that the equipment contractor planned to utilize to repave the trail was cause for concern to the utility providers that the equipment that had the infrastructure below the trail. This was a surprise because this issue had not come up before, despite having paved the trail in the past. And then rather than throwing in the towel and removing the trail from the project and trying to fix it and do it next summer, Slater persevered and spent countless hours reviewing calculations for loads over utility infrastructure, comparing those to the equipment point loads, coordinating with the utilities, all so that we can have a repaved Legacy Trail section along that for our community. So thank you to Slater for your work to navigate that difficult situation and for setting up a working relationship with the utility provider moving forward. Scott also nominated Riley Powers. Riley stepped up in more ways than one this year. Riley was promoted to engineering technician to assistant engineer in the first half of 2024. In the same time frame, Mike Vaughn retired from the town and Riley took over for Mike as project manager on challenging projects. Riley was tasked with seeing through completion of the restroom at the Mobility Hub, which turned out to be a difficult coordination process. Riley worked professionally under stress and navigated a complicated negotiation process with the contractor while keeping everyone involved appraised of the ongoings at all times. This summer, Riley not only been the project manager for 2 capital improvement projects, the Mobility Hub Phase 1 restroom and utility work, and the Mobility Hub Phase 2A parking lot and EV chargers, but he also led the artist selection process for the Church Street Truckee Way roundabout, which you're going to be potentially approving later tonight on your consent agenda, and assisted Slater with the paving and draining project when time permitted. Riley's performance in his first 6 months as assistant engineer has exceeded expectations in many ways, including his efforts to commitment and commitment to completion of existing projects. Great job, Riley, and keep up the positive can-do attitude. Cindy in our finance department nominated Nicole Pestoit. Nicole has been with the town for just a little over a year, and from day one, she has hit the floor running. The admin services finance team has had a few babies over the past year with various maternity leaves, and Nicole has been amazing by jumping in and being able to turn on a dime and help in every aspect within department. Her Excel expertise was so helpful in organizing and building calculations and linking our numerous budget files. And if anybody has ever seen any municipal government's budget files, and particularly ours, they are massive and they crash frequently because they are so big. But Nicole kept those going this past budget cycle. During the year of maternity leave, which is what Admin Services is referring to this past year as, Nicole has shown amazing teamwork by jumping in and helping the team with payroll, journal entries, audits, and accounts payable. It doesn't matter from what degree she helped, everything she was able to do, she did, and she did her normal work as well. So thank you to Nicole. We have Julie Del Vecchio, who was nominated by Lieutenant Madden. And this is what Lieutenant had to say about Julie. I'd like to recognize Julie for her outstanding contributions to our team, exemplifying excellence, teamwork, and commitment in her work at the animal shelter. Julie has gone above and beyond by working not only on her scheduled days, but also on her days off, stepping in whenever the shelter has been short-staffed. Her dedication to filling gaps in staffing has been instrumental in ensuring that the shelter remains fully operational, providing a safe and caring environment for the animals. Julie's efforts have truly been a pivotal part of our success as we transition the shelter to the Humane Society. She consistently shows up with a positive attitude, ready to assist wherever needed, and she's always willing to lend a hand to her coworkers and works tirelessly to get things done. So thank you to Julie. You've made a lasting impact on the shelter, the animals, and the entire team. And then lastly, we have a unique nomination. Scott and Becky in engineering nominated the public works teams, so that's fleet, roads, and facilities, for their teamwork, excellence, and commitment. And our public works teams are also oftentimes these quiet heroes that keep all of our equipment going, keep our roads so that we can drive around and keep our town running. Our facilities are out plowing our trails and maintaining our trails and all of our public owned properties. And so Scott and Becky wanted to recognize the whole team for all of the work they do. There's a few examples that I'll read in a moment, but they are going to coordinate lunch for the team, and thanks for all of their work. So a couple examples for facilities. Stephanie helped with the downtown project. She does all of our landscaping and the roundabouts, and knows all about our invasive weeds, removing the weeds, providing plan review for plants and landscaping, and recommendations on plants and installs. And it's really great and valuable to have that knowledge on our team in-house that we can reach out to at any time. Robert is newer to our team, and he came to rescue when the Truckee River Watershed Council had committed to watering plants and seeds in a restoration area the town partnered with them on, but did not have a plan or a way to provide the water. So Robert and his crew will be filling up a portable tank provided by TRWC on site regularly, so TRWC can water their plants and their seeds. And then Jack gets involved in doing projects such as installing garbage cans. He built a pizza box garbage can for downtown, installing parking meters. He always does that with a smile, and he's always willing to help out where he can. And fleet, we have when the bridges on the Truckee River Legacy Trail didn't line up perfectly, potentially causing a safety hazard for plowing. Tom Dwyer manufactured plow guards for the contractor to install on all the bridges, and they made an additional one for other bridge rehabilitations in the town. They've made cool bollard and chain railings for the sports hub and locations in Brickletown to reduce vehicles parking and driving over the sidewalks. And then in public works, the crews have striped the roads and crosswalks such as West River Street, especially when it was mid-project. Chad has answered calls on vacation from engineering about no parking, and it's not till the end of that conversation that he says, well, I'm on vacation, but I'll be back in a couple days and can help you with that. Ryan and Steve brought out equipment and picked up and delivered and placed boulders adjacent to the new section of Coldstream Trail to help relieve concerns by adjacent property owners. And the list goes on and on. So the team just really wanted to recognize everything our crews do out at the courtyard in support of our community. And then lastly, I just want to announce we had a few incentive awards or employee service awards as well. I'm sorry, these are for employees that have milestone years with the town. We had a number of employees celebrating 5 years with the town: John Hood, Brad Kohler, Steve Kilgore, Jared Bodeski, Julie Beth Delvecchio, Braun Roberts, Mike O'Brien, Riley Powers, and Luke McKinley. We had 4 employees celebrating 10 years of service with the town: Brad Beers, Tammy Fittement, Rosie Johnson, and Thomas Pratt. And then 3 employees celebrating 20 years with the town: Riley Morrison, Sergeant Lopez, Arnie Lopez, and our very own Chief of Police, Danny Renfro. And that is all of our incentive and service awards. I can go right into Town Manager's report. I do have a number of items tonight because we have a little bit of break before our next meeting. Reminder that the Budfish tree lighting ceremony is November 22nd. That's next Friday downtown, 4:15 to 6 o'clock. It's always a great event. We will be closed Thanksgiving, so November 28th and 29th. The last week for yard waste pickup this week, and then one week after that, November 25th through the 29th. Won't resume again until May. So last chance to pick up all those pine needles and get your yards ready for winter. Planning Commission applications are open. The council members appoint Planning Commission members. So Councilmember Romack and Henderson will be reviewing applications to make their appointments. The application period ends November 22nd at 5 p.m. You can find information on our website if you're interested in applying. We are in our winter parking restriction time period, so November 1st through April 30th. It's no parking in town road right-of-ways and in snow removal areas. That's to help facilitate the snow removal process. You can get ticketed or towed if you are parking in those right-of-ways or snow removal areas, so please abide by that. And lastly, we have Festive Fridays coming up again, sponsored by the Downtown Merchant Association. Friday, December 6th, December 13th, and December 20th. It's a lot of fun activities downtown, specialties at the stores, drinking and shopping, sips and shops, I think is what they call. They all have special drinks. I don't think they're all alcoholics. I think it's for everybody. I realized when I said that it might sound wrong, but please go out and support our downtown merchants and shop local for the holiday season. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Jen. And that is the last of the items, so we can now open all of the presentations for any public comment. So that would include the recognitions for Small Business Big Applause, Gratitude Month, the Town Manager's Employee Incentive Awards, and the Town Manager Report. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment on any of these items? Okay, it does not appear so. So we'll now go on to the consent calendar, which is long. I will go through the 11 items and then we'll, including 6.6. So 6.1 is simply approval of the minutes from the October 22 meeting. 6.2, the California Energy Commission grant agreement and approval of new capital improvement project. 6.3 on the consent calendar is the 2024-25 Wildland Protection Agreement budget adjustment. 6.4 is the design contract award for fencing and security gates at Town Hall. 6.5 Public Art Commission of Truckee artist recommendation for the Church Street Truckee Way Roundabout Public Art Project. Then 6.6 is the Town Manager Performance Base pay increase. The recommended action is that council approve Resolution 2024-68, awarding a 6.0% pay increase to the town manager, Jennifer Calloway. resulting in an annual pay amount at the top of the wage range of $257,191.22, effective October 26, 2024, and then also a one-time lump sum payment of $2,410.72. Item 6.7 is the emergency contract work authorization for drainage relocation near the Donner Lake Boat Ramp. 6.8 is the amendment to reimbursement agreement for preliminary engineering services with Union Pacific Railroad for Reimagine Bridge Street project. 6.9 is the resolution removing animal services job classifications from the wage matrix. Then 6.10 is a drug and alcohol testing policy changes. 6.11 is the pilot program for night sidewalk snow removal operations for community facilities districts of West River, Brickletown, Rail Yard, and Envision DPR. Now, does anyone on the council wish to pull any items?
I wish to pull 6.11.
Does anyone from staff wish to pull an item?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Anyone from the public wish to pull an item? Okay. Can I have a motion on the consent calendar with the exception of item 6.11?
I'll move we approve the consent calendar up through 6.10.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. So it's 3-0 on the consent calendar. And now let's move on to item 6.11. Do you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor, Vice Mayor. I am supportive of the pilot program as it's been described. I pulled this item only to express my concern over buying gas-powered snow blowers. These are both greenhouse gas emitters and they're also noisy, so I was just hoping that staff had some reasoning for that. I'm actually more hoping that there's a better alternative. There are some residential homes in these areas that we're talking about doing, so I'm concerned about both the noise and the GHG.
Yeah, I can speak to that if you like. So, couple things going on here. One is we're recommending that we do nighttime sidewalk snow removal, really with the goal of improving walkability in the downtown. Currently, our sidewalk crews come in shortly after the street cleanup work has been done. Then a lot of the sidewalk snow ends up kind of right at the edge of the street or in the parking spaces. The goal with adding this night crew would be to flip that coordination so the bulk of the sidewalk snow can get out to the street and the parking spaces ahead of the street cleanup and parking space cleanup that happens in the middle of the night. We had a public comment related to noise. The reason we do this downtown snow removal at night is because from a practical standpoint, that's the only time we can do it. During the daytime, the spaces are full of cars, lots of traffic down there. So doing the street snow removal at night is done at night for that reason. Another thing that we did a couple of years ago is we modified the backup alarms on all of the town equipment. These are the large loaders. And we migrated from the high frequency backup alarms that you can hear sometimes for miles to lower frequency alarms that are much more focused to just behind the equipment and generally don't spread noise into the areas of the community that they don't need to. So those are some things we've done on the heavy equipment. As it relates to the walk behind snow blowers, what we currently have is a combination of small tractors that are hydrocarbon-based fuel to clear sidewalks, as well as smaller walk-behind snow blowers. What happens with the larger tractors is they tend to create more damage and they're less maneuverable on the sidewalks. So what we're recommending is that we buy these larger walk-behind snow blowers that would be used in lieu of the tractors that are used on the sidewalks. So as part of that, we did research availability of electric equipment that could do that. Bottom line is it's not available for the type of work we need to do. So there are small all-electric walk-behind snow blowers. You can buy them at Mountain Hardware. The amount of charge and capacity that they have is commensurate with, you know, clearing the deck at your house, maybe the driveway at your house. For these larger scale, like 12-hour shifts, and then potentially using the same equipment in a subsequent 12-hour shift, that equipment's not available in an electric in an all-electric application. So what we're recommending, these units we're recommending we purchase are hybrid units as opposed to all electric. And it's basically because the all-electric units are not available. So again, what these would do is they would reduce the amount of time we got to put the tractors, which are also hydrocarbon fuel, and use more fuel than these walk-behinds would, you know, on the sidewalks in the downtown area and elsewhere in town.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, I want to reiterate, I think this is a great idea to do this shift and to create more walkability and earlier in the day. So I'm not concerned about that at all. I am just concerned about purchasing units that are not consistent with what the direction that I'm hoping we're taking. Are these able to be, are these able to utilize our sustainable diesel fuel?
No, these are gasoline-powered units.
Okay.
There aren't diesel-powered walk-behind units available, at least that we've been able to locate.
And when you say hybrid, it's not hybrid in a traditional vehicle. It's a hybrid in that it's a smaller unit. It's not a tractor unit, but it is all gas powered.
It's gasoline-powered, but it also, so it's like the hybrid loaders that we've been purchasing since 2006, where it's a gasoline engine that powers electric motors that then power the equipment. And what you end up with is more efficient power delivery and less fuel consumption with that type of power system than an exclusive kind of hydrocarbon-based engine that then delivers power directly to the drivetrain and the blower head. So it's delivering power to an electric motor that then delivers the power to the working components of the blower.
I was not familiar with that kind of style unit. Thank you for that explanation.
Yep.
Councilmember Romack, do you have any questions? Dan, what equipment goes down Riverside Drive? Is it the big loaders?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the issue there is that street's very narrow, and
Right.
there's a lot of cars that park in the street right of way down through there because off-site parking is very limited. We try to take a kind of a generous approach to our no parking in the right of way policy because of the dynamics of that street. But as a result, we have to do the snow removal at night where we can push the snow the length of the street rather than discharging it on either side of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're still having to back up, and that's when the beepers go off.
Yeah, but I would clarify that on Riverside Drive, where there's the high frequency beepers that we all hear that we're familiar with. What we've converted to is low frequency, which you actually don't really hear as an adjacent property owner because it directs all of the noise, if you will, to the back of the equipment, which is really what you're trying to warn potential pedestrians against being in that zone.
Right. So you've already gone as far as you can in terms of reducing the sound emitted by the loaders.
With our fleet, I will point out there are lots of private contractors doing work in the downtown area as well, and on different driveway contracts, different parking lots that are privately owned and managed. So we don't we don't really, as the Public Works Department, have control over those backup alarms.
Of course, thank you. Yes, good point. All right, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the pilot program. Oh, public comment.
Oh, public comment. Yes, any public comment? Seeing none? Do I have a motion? Thank you.
Okay, yes, I move that we approve the pilot program for night sidewalk snow removal operations in community facilities districts of West River, Brickletown, Real Yard, and Vision DPR.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. 3-0. Okay. Okay, now I believe we're ready to move on to our discussion items. Did I leave out any public comments so far? No. Good. All right. So the first item on our discussion is the legislative update from, well, I believe it'll be Kyra, Ross, and Hillary. Hillary, you'll start out.
I will be very brief. I'd like to introduce Kira Ross, who's the president of Emmanuel Jones and Associates, who are state-level legislative advocates for Truckee. So take it away, Kira.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice Mayor Zabrensky, as well as the council members. Kira Ross with Emmanuel Jones and Associates, your Sacramento-based lobbyist. Wanted to do a quick review of 2024 and talk a little bit about what we're anticipating in 2025 in Sacramento. So with that, see if I can do this correctly. I'll just quickly note on the budget, this last year was almost entirely defined by a $47 billion deficit. That deficit really decided what issues that they took up. It was also drove many of the legislative and budget decisions throughout the year and significantly decreased the number of bills that increased state spending and eliminated the local funding that we typically see out of the state budget. It was a budget very heavily focused on the protection of existing programs and services. However, we did see an additional $500 million in low-income tax credits for affordable housing. We did see protection of active transportation, and we did see the $1 billion for HAP funding for homeless services that we're requesting the protection of. The good news, state revenues are up. It says $4.1 billion. I just looked at it today. It's actually just over $5 billion at this point. So we're up on top of what we thought we would be in the June state budget. The cautionary note is that a lot of that's going to get eaten up by Prop 35, which is the Medi-Cal tax that was just passed, and Prop 98, the combination of those two that will eat up a lot of this existing $4.5 billion increase. And we also have been told by state analysts to anticipate a deficit for the next 2 years. The state does have a structural deficit. So what will look like, we'll find out in January, on January 10th when the governor's budget comes out. 2024, very quickly, 2,100 bills were introduced, 1,200 went to the governor, 1,000 were signed, 189 vetoed, 15% veto rate, right in line with where the governor's been the last couple of years. Again, the number one reason for vetoes of bills was bills that asked for funding outside of the state budget process. So let's talk a little bit about housing legislation that came through this year. We had a couple of really big bills this year. I just wanted to mention them. Housing element, really dealing with builder's remedy. There were two bills. 1886 was a bill that clarifies that only HCD can determine if a housing element is in substantial compliance with state law. This is important because cities for years have self-certified. We can no longer self-certify in the future. So that's the significance of AB 1886. AB 1893 tried to add new parameters around the approval of builder's remedy projects so that we know when we can deny them, when we can approve them, things like that as they move forward. SB 937 is a delay of collection of some housing fees until certificate of occupancy is issued. It really applies to projects that are under 10 units and that are streamlined and include affordable housing. So projects that come in, last couple of years, we'd have a couple of by-right streamlining housing bills. Projects that are under 10 units in that category are now effectively We will delay the collection of the housing impact fees on those projects until the very end of the process, as opposed to charging it early on in the process. We were active on SB 440, Ms. Skinner's bill, an important bill that allows 2 or more local governments to establish a regional housing authority. We will have the ability, I know Mountain Housing and the region has really been looking at this as an opportunity for affordable housing. It allows the new financing authority to raise funds for affordable housing through bonds, grants, and voter-approved ballot measures. So happy to report that was signed, goes into effect on January 1st. And then finally, homelessness continues to really be a major issue. AB 3093 was an important bill that adds 2 new low-income categories under RENA, acutely low and extremely low. It effectively takes the 0 to 15% income range and splits it. The idea is to really drill down in some of these areas and make sure that as cities and towns and counties across the state are doing their housing element, that we're taking a look very specifically at the lowest category to really try to get to that income group of folks and to address the needs of those communities. Climate sustainability, Prop 4, $10 billion climate bond. There's some good funding in there for things like recycled water, local parks, wildfire, extreme heat mitigation. Plastic bags. After 2026, you can no longer use those thick plastic bags that we thought people would recycle that they weren't actually recycling. So that's a good little bill. 2 bills that we were supportive of. Glad to note that both of these were signed. Both SB 1143, which expands the state's paint product stewardship program, and 1066 on marine flares. Both of those were signed and will go into effect on January 1st. We had an extraordinary session, the second actually in the year, where the governor had 1 bill that went through ultimately. This is on the oil and gas, specifies minimum inventory levels for refineries, and establishes parameters for refinery maintenance. This is his ongoing push on oil and gas industry. The other note I'll just say that we had just on Friday was the Air Resources Board approved the re-upping of the LCFS, so the low carbon fuel standard. That's taken a lot of heat over the last couple of weeks because there was a staff report from a couple of months ago that noted that by increasing or renewing the LCFS program, it potentially could add up to 50 cents per gallon of gas beginning in 2025. We're starting to see some pushback after Friday's decision, so we may see some legislation on that issue going forward in 2025. Another big year for labor. There was a really big bill. We had an opposition to it. AB 2561 by Assemblymember McKinnon requires cities to present the status of vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts at a public hearing at least once a year. This was a major priority for labor unions. Their concern is that there are some cities, namely 1 or 2 very large cities in Southern California, that they thought were trying to use vacancies as a way to solve budget issues. So they want cities to be more transparent about local vacancies in your bargaining units. So looking forward, we've got a lot coming in 2025. Just wanted to note a couple of things. Obviously, the outcome of the election is sort of front and center at the moment. We'll begin, and I guess we'll see how that's going to impact the sort of out the gate. First thing will be December 2nd. We have a new extraordinary session that the governor has asked for. It's going to be very narrow, very limited, because under special sessions, you can only introduce bills that are part of the proclamation. So you can't introduce anything. It's very narrow to what the governor has called the special session for. So the special session will be pretty specific to additional funding to the Department of Justice to fund legal action if needed to defend California's laws and priorities. They will probably come in on December 2nd, open the new legislative session, open the extraordinary session, introduce a couple of bills, and then leave and come back in January, which is traditional. Part of the reason is they've got some logistical issues that will make it very difficult to hear bills in December, so they'll probably hear them January 6th when they come back to the 20th, which is when the governor is hoping to have bills from this session signed. The 20th also happens to be Inauguration Day in D.C., so I think we'll see quite a bit of action during that time. I think we'll also see a number of bills introduced on December 6th as part of the regular legislative session that are part of some of the big issues that we think that the Trump administration may have some conflict with the state around. One of those will be immigration protection, expansion of sanctuary city legislation from a couple of years ago. I think we'll also see some legislation and additionally budget action on disaster response. Trump in his 2016 and then in recent years has made comments about not funding California disaster response specific to wildfire. So governor and legislative leaders have talked about creating a California version of a sort of FEMA type account that the state could dip into if we do have a disaster of some kind, that the state needs to backfill to fund ongoing efforts if the federal government should try to pull back. And that will be important in areas like this where if you do have a wildfire, we need those resources quickly and timely. I'd expect a strong defense from the state for our existing climate protections, federal waivers for regulations like tailpipe emissions. There are currently about 8 waivers that are out there waiting to get approved. The hope is that they'll get approved prior to January 20th. If they don't, there may be some back and forth with the state on those issues. A couple of other notes. Governor will announce his budget on January 10th, so that'll give us a good indication of what we're likely to see. We were going to have about 36 new legislative members, including a new assembly member for this area. So we'll see how that new group of 36 impacts the ongoing decision-making in Sacramento. As I noted, state budget deficit, we've got the reauthorization of cap and trade. That's going to be a really big discussion in Sacramento going forward. Cap and trade, greenhouse gas program funds a lot of big projects in Sacramento, things like high-speed rail, transportation. We've got a lot of different programs that are funded out of it. What will that look like going forward? How will that impact different funding sources? A lot of discussion, I think, beginning in January, and I would anticipate that will be part of the governor's budget, some of the discussion. Wildfire insurance regulations. We've got a couple of regulations at the Department of Insurance. The state's, I think it's the insurance strategy, is anticipated to be done at the end of this month. So we'll see if that actually happens. If those are in place, it includes both rate setting, new rate setting for wildfire insurance, but also includes the catastrophic wildfire insurance going forward. Those 2 items, we're waiting to see what happens with those. There were a couple of pieces of legislation on wildfire insurance last year. I anticipate potentially a couple of more this year, but it's been largely the focus has been at the Department of Insurance. And finally, the governor's final 2 years. This is a governor who is the front runner for president in 2028 right now. He's also got a lot of big, heavy issues on his plate going forward in his last 2 years. He's got inflation and gas prices and housing, cost of housing, all sorts of things. So he's got a lot to see where he may go and what kind of legacy he's going to leave in the final 2 years. I will stop there. I gave you a lot of information and see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Kira. Should we start with Council Member Romack?
Sure. Thank you. Really appreciate that. It's always interesting when you come and present. I was just curious on the major issues moving forward at the League of California Cities annual conference in October. There was a session on, as we're seeing more efficient vehicles, revenues for SB1 and such are going down, which means potentially less funding for cities and towns. Is this something that is going to be on a radar yet? Or, do you have any updates on that?
It's been on the radar for a number of years. I think from a lobbying standpoint, yes, we've been very concerned about the vehicle fees and what that's going to mean, and especially when you have more electric vehicles on the road that aren't paying gas tax. It's been an issue. I know there's been some discussions at CTC. There's been discussions in the legislature. There hasn't been legislation per se, and I think it's sort of out there as an issue, but not yet one that has risen high enough to the priority. Although, we may see some discussion as it pertains to cap and trade and how do you fund some of these things going forward.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah. My question was on the same line. Just where do you see the gas tax versus VMT discussion going? And do you know of any legislators that are planning on bringing any items up specific to that?
I've not heard of any specific to that. The focus there's been discussion, but not in terms of legislation. The focus I think that we're going to see when it comes to gas tax is on gas prices. And there's been a real sensitivity to gas prices, and that's where the ARB decision last Friday really kind of gets the legislators in a spot where, as much as they want to see programs like LCFS go forward and understand the importance of a program like that as it pertains to the state's climate efforts, they're also very sensitive to gas prices. So if you're looking at something like gas tax, if you want to overhaul it or increase it or do something where you can make up for the loss of revenue that you're getting from EV drivers, there is the VMT discussion, which has largely been at the California Transportation Commission, but I haven't seen that in legislation, and there's not a lot of interest in increasing something like the gas tax to make up for that loss. So we'll see if they do it. I haven't heard of any legislation this year.
Yeah, I was wondering if they were going to start looking at things like taxing EV charging as a similar vehicle for that.
Yeah, I've heard that tossed around. I haven't seen it come up in legislation. On EV, I will say on EV vehicles, the big issue has been the stations and the infrastructure. And the question of, if we get to 2035, when we're hitting the mandates of when we've got to convert, will we have enough infrastructure statewide for that to actually happen? And there's a lot of concern about that going forward. And then also the reliability of the stations that are out there.
Right. Okay. You mentioned waivers. We kind of saw what happened with the CARB regulations and in the last Trump administration and how they weren't going to allow California to have that waiver. So that's what you're talking about.
Exactly
there.
what I'm talking about.
And so that's the only one I'm aware of. What are the other waivers?
I don't have them listed, but I actually read something earlier today that said there are 8 waivers that California has. And I could find out and get them for you. I just don't know them off the top of my head.
At your convenience. I'm just
Happy
curious.
to do
And
that.
then my last question is, what do you see coming down that could be specifically, impacting Truckee and Nevada County and our interests?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think, just sort of popped in my head, electric bicycles is going to be back. So e-bikes, we're going to see additional legislation on that. We're going to see additional housing legislation, which I think we're just going to have to, every year there's, 10 or 15 new, at least 10 or 15, usually it's a lot higher than that, new bills on affordable housing. I think there still is going to be some, tightening up all the fees, tightening up any lengthy delays that developers see where they're trying to chip away at some of those. I think the other areas, I'm really watching the wildfire insurance regulations. There was a bill by Senator Wiener, SB 610, that emerged very late last year. They tried to take the high fire severity zone mapping system and turn it on its head and make it in some ways easier to approve housing and wildfire within WUI areas, but also took some of the mapping duties that are usually done by local fire chiefs, took it out of the local fire chief's hand, set it up to CAL FIRE. It was a very controversial piece of legislation. If that comes back, that's pretty concerning for me, just in terms of impacts that it could have. Then I think just general legislation that we'll be watching, some labor. There was a big labor bill at the end that did die, 2257, I believe it is, dealing with contracting out for services. That bill died, but I think that won't be back. So it's another big issue. So we're going to have, 2025 will be a pretty hardy year for legislation.
Okay, well, we'll keep you working. I guess the last thing then would be because it is really impactful to our region, the fire insurance. And our region in particular is doing extensive work in creating healthier forests and reducing our fuels and reducing our wildfire risk. And we're wondering when the insurance companies are going to be expected to acknowledge that.
Well, that's part of the discussion at the Department of Insurance with the catastrophic wildfire insurance that they're developing the modeling for it right now, where theoretically, as I understand the program, they would allow insurers to take on or include in the policies catastrophic insurance, which would cover all sorts of disasters. So they would take into account the risk for wildfire. And at the same time, they would require the insurers that they would have to take on more of the riskier
areas.
more of the areas. So theoretically, that's one of the options. However, I think part of what the legislature has been waiting on this issue is for these regulations to go through, because they've got when you've got regulations going, they don't like to intercede in that process. If they don't happen by December and they come back in January, I think we'll start to see some pressure on the Department of Insurance, or if they don't like what they see, they may try to go down the road of doing something. We may also see something in the budget process. Department of Insurance has to get their budget approved, so there's always a little bit of an opportunity in the subcommittee hearings for some back and forth on some of these questions.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I just want to follow up on Councilmember Klostad's last question. And when you're talking about the catastrophic insurance, are you talking about revisions to the CalFare plan or something else?
It's not to the FAIR plan. This is it's called catastrophic CAP modeling that's been used in other parts of the country. It's being proposed at the Department of Insurance, and it would allow insurers for the very first time to do catastrophic modeling and to take into account disasters and the likelihood of disasters when they're setting policy levels and setting the pricing of policies. Initially, it sort of bumps policies up, higher price, but over time it should level it out because they're taking into account the floods, fires, other kinds of disasters. The challenge is that nobody's really done it out in the West Coast. It's used pretty extensively in Florida, as I understand, and other states, but there are existing catastrophic models, but nobody's been willing to give the state the information, and so the state has to develop their own. That's taken 5 or 10 years in other places. They're trying to do it in 6 months in California. So the theory is that it helps with the pricing, and it should bring it down more over time, but we've got to get there first.
Do you know at this point whether that catastrophic modeling would include the very thing Councilmember Klostad was talking about in terms of our effort to reduce the amount of fuels and substantially reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfires in our community?
Yeah, I think that's sort of the home hardening piece that is included as part of the discussion and the rates and what they're doing. I think there's as I understand it, part of the strategy, there's a strategy, a whole sort of plan that the state insurance commissioner has that it includes catastrophic modeling, it includes some rate setting, but it also including sort of credits for home hardening, which is that would fall under.
Okay. And you don't know right now if any potential legislation about revising the CalFare plan?
No, there's nothing going right at this moment, but there wasn't at the end of the year, but there could be this next year, and the governor could do something in his budget.
Okay. And then you mentioned the AB 2561 requiring cities to present status of vacancies. Can you explain that? Are they talking about residential vacancies?
No, these
commercial?
are vacancies within bargaining units. Yeah.
Within bargaining units.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
It also appears that one doesn't apply to us because we're a charter city.
Okay. Thank you. And then you addressed housing because we've had all this legislation since 2018, sort of taking away parking requirements, allowing increased densities, further streamlining. Do you know if there's any legislation specifically addressing even greater opportunities for density bonuses, higher percentages, giving the developers more ability to create higher density projects?
There weren't this year. In previous years, there certainly have been, in terms of there was 2011 and 2 years ago, and then there were a whole series of bills that been pieces of legislation that were signed that did give new incentives. This year, the focus, frankly, was on builder's remedy, and so there weren't a lot of bills that did anything in terms of new incentives. In part because we've kind of given away as much as we can on density bonus. We're hitting a point where there are a number of cities that have said, we can't give away anymore. We've given away the store.
Yeah.
So there was a bill but it only applied in the coastal zone. But outside of that, they focused more now on fees and builder's remedy this year.
Does anyone have any follow-up questions? Thank you very much, Kira.
Yeah. Thank you.
So now, is there any public comment on the legislative update? All right, is there any discussion? We received a report, asked our questions. Thank you very much, Kira. And so now we're ready to move on to the next item on the agenda. That'll be Lucas. Okay, this is an ordinance for a lot line adjustment. It looks like this is something of a cleanup, just a correction to process.
All right, Vice Mayor, council members, thank you for having me this evening. This is a cleanup item. You've seen this before, so I'll just give you a brief overview of what this project was and what we're changing. So this is the Corliss Liston Verst Franklin lot line adjustment and zoning map amendment. This project consists of a lot line adjustment between 3 improved residential parcels and an adjacent vacant parcel. The project also requires an amendment to the zoning map due to vacant parcel being zoned residential single family 2.0 and the improved parcels being residential single family with an X designation, which states that you cannot further subdivide these parcels. This project was previously brought before Town Council and approved on September 10th of this year. After approval, it was brought to staff's attention that the rezone was approved through a resolution, but would require an ordinance to amend the zoning map. Since the town's development code was originally approved through an ordinance, it would need to be amended with a similar mechanism. Adoption of the new ordinance would also rescind Resolution 2024-57 to the extent that it purported to amend the zoning map, since it's not possible to achieve that through a resolution. This slide shows the proposed lot line adjustment of the parcels with the red lines showing the new proposed lot lines and the dotted lines showing the old lines to be removed. And as shown here, the proposed zoning will remain single-family residential for all parcels, but the suffix X, or no further subdivision, will be added to the portion of Lot 4 that is being added to the remaining lot line adjustment to prevent the creation of any split zone parcels. Staff has found that this project is exempt from California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, pursuant to Section 15305, minor alterations to land use limitations of the CEQA guidelines, which exempt activities that would alter parcels without resulting in changes to land use or density. Staff is recommending that the council finds this project exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 15305, minor alterations to land use limitations, and adopt Ordinance 2024-09, approving the zoning map amendment. Thank you.
Any questions, Councilmember Klostad? Any questions, Councilmember Romack? I have no questions. Thank you. Any public comment? Okay, we'll move right to discussion. Anyone have anything to say up here on the dais? Does anyone want to offer a motion?
I will make a motion that we find the project exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 15305 and adopt Ordinance 2024-09 approving the zoning map amendment.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes 3-0. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item 7.3. This will be the Dark Skies Awareness Campaign Lighting Rebate Grant Program with a recommendation to extend the contract with Sierra Business Council. Do we have staff?
Yeah, I'm going to kick off and then I'll pass it over to Brittany. Thanks for being with us tonight, Brittany. This is a contract extension. We're nearing the end of the term of the contract. We still have budget remaining. So our recommendation is to extend through June 30th of 2025. But while we were bringing this to you, we thought we'd ask Brittany with SBC to give a little bit of a program update. A couple quick reminders for council and anybody in the audience and watching at home. We had a total rebate allocation amount of $50,000. This is a rolling first come, first served basis, and we launched in April 2024 with the contract terminating at the end of December unless we extend this evening. This is in alignment with Truckee 2040 General Plan, the Night Sky Preservation, and a little bit of the Lighting Inventory and Compliance Program. We're not fully delving into the inventory, but touching on that a little bit. This is for the purchase of lights prior to launch in April, but installed after. So you did expand to include that in the previous update for new construction and new additions, as well as existing residential and commercial. And then you also expanded this to beyond Energy Star approved lighting, and it's all LED energy efficient lights that do not exceed 3,000 K. For program parameters, $75 per fixture, up to 8 fixtures for residential and small family units, and $50 per fixture with a max of 50 fixtures for commercial and large multifamily residential. You also added an additional incentive for motion sensors during our previous updates. And with that, Brittany, do you want to give an update?
Sure. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for doing those updates as well. Makes my job a little bit easier. And good evening. It's nice to see you all. Since the launch of the program in April, we've had 28 applications that have been approved, and all of them have been residential, so single-family homes. The program itself has facilitated the switch of 128 old lighting fixtures with new dark sky compliant and energy efficient lighting. And we're always constantly wanting to make sure that our program is accessible and easy to use. So for our webpage, we translated our webpage to Spanish to increase participation by the Spanish speaking community. And we've also updated our language to include renter-friendly language. So previously, it's always been open to renters, but we more explicitly stated it that it's open to renters. Here are some of the examples of the lighting updates. On the left, you can see pre-installed lighting. So they did not follow the dark sky five principles of lighting for dark sky. So as you can see, they're not fully shielded. Some of them have CFL light bulbs, and they allow a lot of upward allowance. On the right, we have the post-installed lighting, downward facing, dark. They only can, any of the light bulbs that were purchased have to be warm toned and have a color temperature of 3,000 Kelvin. So I'll get into the application survey results. Every applicant has received the survey, and it is anonymous. So 100% of applicants have mentioned that they were satisfied or very satisfied with the rebate program, and that they were 100% also mentioned that they were very likely to recommend the program to others. Overall, we've had really positive feedback from the applicants. They mentioned that the application was very straightforward, and they thought that the rebate process or the rebate itself was very generous. They're grateful for the program and the intentions of the program, and they really wanted to show that they appreciated the efforts from the town for preserving the nighttime sky. So for some areas of improvement, a couple of residents have mentioned that they would like to see the program marketed more. They had only heard of it through friends of friends or by mouth, and so they'd like to see a little bit more promotion throughout the community. And then we had one resident as well as mention that they were a little disappointed that they weren't able to get the $20 motion sensor bonus, as that was added on a month later after the program was online. But that's kind of our updates and program updates. I'll open it up to questions if there are any.
I'm just gonna layer on, just to remind the council that there's about $60,000 remaining on the contract, and that's what we're asking to utilize for the extension. We would be reallocating that fund to do program administration, purchase the software that's used for the application process through SBC. So a little bit of reallocation within that budget amount. And then recently wanted to let everybody know that the Truckee Cultural District initiated their educational outreach efforts about 2 weeks ago. And there's a snapshot there on the screen, but they've sent out their newsletter. They're beginning to ramp up their awareness initiatives that'll be coming in the spring this year. So there is more communication going on about the lighting rebate program that's encompassed in their newsletter. And Brittany or I can answer any questions.
Councilmember Klovstad?
Yeah, it sounds like we're all kind of honed in on the fact that maybe we could do some more outreach. So I know this was advertised quite a lot during our Dark Skies program, and it's been talked about at the CTA meetings. Are there any other forums that we've made a presentation to, or any other ways that we've reached out to the community?
There are. So Brittany and I did a joint KTKE interview on the Dark Skies photo competition and the rebate program. Brittany presented at the exhibition on the program. We've repeated some of our social media outreach in the last couple of months, somewhat sporadically, to again spread the word and get awareness out there. Newsletter updates, but we'll continue to try different sources, and the Truckee Cultural District can support that as well.
Yeah, and I would also say previously we mentioned that the program was supposed to sunset in December of this year, so it might be helpful to re-engage and let everyone know that it will be extended until the next year.
That's a great opportunity to reconnect with a few people. Have we done any outreach specific to businesses or the multifamily complexes that could benefit from this program?
I'll let Jen take that one. Okay. I know that we've engaged the Chamber of Commerce, but I'll let Jen expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, we've shared all the information with our partners. The Chamber has distributed it, TDMA. We sent the information to CAD. I believe they put it out in their newsletter and map. Other than that specific targeted business outreach with individual business owners, we haven't had capacity to take that on. We can maybe provide some more updates at a Chamber board meeting or a TDMA board meeting and see if we can spread the word that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate those questions. Same questions. I know we got a public comment about businesses participating in the program. One other question, just kind of on outreach. I think we had talked about it when this came before, partnering with Mountain Hardware or something. So on their products, if it was compliant with this program and eligible, it could state that. Have we looked into that at all? Is that in place or?
Yes, that was a great suggestion. That seems very simple. And Kelly Cutler with the Cultural District has explored that, and we ran into challenges with the different HOA requirements. So to label a product as being compliant and eligible for a rebate might not mean it's compliant with HOA requirements. And so layering that on became fairly complicated pretty quickly, because all of the HOAs had different requirements. That's what I heard back.
Got it. Unfortunate. But maybe, yes, as we're doing targeted outreach, if Mountain Hardware could have information at their checkout counter or something like that as a potential, because I could see that as a place where a lot of folks might be going to do this. No other questions. Appreciate the success of this program.
Virtually all of my questions were answered, and then Sierra Business Council in writing earlier, and then Sierra Business Council provides some nice further detail answering my questions. But just given our little questioning here, it strikes me that second homeowners and then vacation rentals would be at good targets. So if we reached out to visit Truckee, Tahoe, or property managers?
I'm not sure, but that's a great idea. I should also say that we've also promoted the program itself on SBC channels and networks, newsletters, on our, any email blast through CTA. So, but I'll let Jen answer that one too.
We'll circle back with VTT and try to get that information out to them again. We were present at Tahoe Donner, the annual meeting that they have in the June-ish timeframe. We had a lot of questions and interest from property owners up there. So I would presume some were second homeowners, some full-time homeowners, but there was a lot of interest at the time, and we gave out a lot of information up there.
Okay. I noticed, then my other question is, I noticed in the picture, the non-compliant outdoor lighting, some of those fixtures were under a ceiling, under a shed. But nonetheless, they would still be, they'd qualify for the rebate because they have open glass.
Absolutely. And they're also older lighting fixtures. And so we want to definitely promote energy efficiency, dark sky compliant, and Energy Star light bulbs. And so by helping them change out those light bulbs, old fixtures, it definitely promotes energy efficiency, helps save a little bit of money. And then also most of those were not motion sensors. If any of them, dark sky, if they changed those old fixtures with dark sky compliant fixtures that have motion sensors, that also helps be a little bit more energy efficient.
Okay, thank you. Do either of my colleagues have any further follow-up? Okay, thank you very much, Brittany.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to discussion.
Public comment?
Oh, that public comment. Yes, we want public comment. Does anyone wish to make a public comment? Okay, seeing none. Now let's try discussion. And thank you for reminding me.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I think we're all on the same track here. We'd really love to see this utilized by our business community. And I think it's a great program. It's obviously been very successful, very favorable reviews. So hopefully we can get some traction on that. I think the program extension is a great opportunity to reconnect with all of our partners and redeploy our the program and its policies and its opportunities and its successes. So I'd encourage staff and SBC to work together on that. And other than that, I'm very supportive of this program continuing.
Ditto.
Okay, I don't know if I'm that enamored with the program. I keep looking for, I'm real interested in seeing some actually material results. And I'm more inclined towards enforcement. But I see this as a path in that direction that gives people an opportunity to lower their energy bills and reduce the light that plagues my house. So that does leave me supportive.
We would like to see that some success that we can build and point to before we begin that ordinance process. And that is the ultimate goal as stated in the general plan. So we're working our way there, I believe.
And then just one other thing. I was the one who asked the comment about holiday lighting, if there's a way of reducing the glare and the excessive lighting from holiday lighting. I think one of the responses I got is more of a curfew on holiday lighting is something that could be explored. And I'm hoping that happens. I'm sure downtown merchants don't want to reduce the wonderful glow of the holiday lighting, but by 10 o'clock, most people my age are in bed, and then everybody else has to go. Bars still close at 2, right? Yes, okay. So there's no reason to have them on all night. Okay, enough of that diversion. Do we have a motion?
I think it's my turn.
Okay.
Since we're just volleying back and forth. So that we authorize, I move that we authorize the town manager to execute a contract extension with SBC to extend the and administer Dark Skies lighting rebate program through June 30th, 2025, with authorization to adjust the contract allocation amount.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. That passes 3-0. Let's move on to, thank you very much, Brittany. Let's move on to 7.1, 7.4, Assembly Bill 413, parking near crosswalks. It'll be Blake. Blake, how do you say your last name?
Fossil.
Oh, Klossel. Got it. Thank you. Yeah.
Vice Mayor and council members, thanks so much for having me. My name is Blake Klossel, rhymes with fossil. And I am here today to talk to you about Assembly Bill 413, Parking Near Crosswalks Reduction Ordinance. So as a refresher, in 2023, the state of California approved Assembly Bill 413, which we'll refer to as AB 413, which amends Section 2250 of the California Vehicle Code. The amendment prohibits parking within 20 feet of the vehicle approach side of any marked or unmarked crosswalk, or within 15 feet of any crosswalk where a curb extension is present, unless modified by a local agency, hence why I'm here today. Staff identified 15 parking spots within that 15 or 20-foot no parking threshold described in AB 413 throughout the entirety of town. 9 of these parking spots are located within the downtown parking district. The state utilized data from the NACTO and National Association of City Transportation Officials to develop the distance thresholds that was kind of described in the AB or in the Assembly Bill. And then in February of this year, Town Council directed staff to perform an engineering analysis to determine if a reduction in the AB 413 is warranted at the local level. AB 413 gives the opportunity of the local agency to reduce the thresholds pending this engineering analysis. So the way we kind of handled this engineering analysis, we kind of took a 3-pronged approach here. So we looked at our existing improvements. So we looked at, we identified the locations within Truckee that have curb extensions. Then we looked at traffic incident analysis. So we took a 10-year period of incident data and located some areas of concern. And then finally, we took some speed analysis specifically in the downtown parking district. Those are kind of our 3 main pillars that we're using to recommend this to you all. So we'll start with the existing improvement analysis. So NACTO states that daylighting in advance of a crosswalk makes pedestrians more visible to motorists and cars more visible to pedestrians, a win-win there. They also state in this next sentence, this may be accomplished by restricting parking, which is what AB 413 is requiring or recommending, and or installing a curb extension. And I underline it because I really want to make sure that you remember that part. Curb extensions are present in the vicinity of all 9 parking spaces in downtown Truckee. That would fall within that AB 413 threshold. So I included this diagram here, this image. This is from NACTO, and it gives you, this was actually in the previous presentation back in February. And you can see what they're going for, what NACTO and the Assembly Bill is going for. They really want those cars closest to the crosswalk to be removed, restricted, et cetera. So on the left, you can see, without the setback or a curb extension. And then on the right, you can see without a setback. And this is kind of what we're looking at today. This is what it looks like with the curb extension. Now, please disregard my hand drawing there. But it makes the point, I think, best, where you can see those red lines are what we call the travel lanes, or we pretty much shoulder line. That's kind of the extent of where a vehicle should be driving. Now, the curb extension present allows for a pedestrian to pretty much get to that travel line and increase the sight distance, again, of what NACTO is trying to say, both with increased visibility of pedestrian and vehicles. So now we're moving on to the traffic incident analysis. Over the past 10 years, there were 12 reported incidents involving pedestrians and vehicles. And these 12 were in or adjacent to marked or unmarked crosswalks. And none of these incidents actually occurred in or adjacent to the crosswalks with the curb extension, which is nice. That, again, that falls within that AB 413 that where we would be losing that parking if we were to just follow AB 413. This is a map. I know it might be a little bit difficult to see, but we kind of highlighted all the locations over the past 10 years. And we highlighted Bridge Street, Donner Pass Road, and Church Street. Again, each of these locations where an incident occurred, there is not a location with an existing curb extension that falls within the 15-foot threshold that AB 413 would require us to move parking from. So now we're going to take a look at vehicular speed analysis. So Assembly Bill 413 doesn't make a distinction in required separation by speed. So they're basing this 15-foot or 20-foot threshold off of a road that can go up to 55 miles per hour, or has a speed limit of 55 miles per hour, or 25 miles per hour. So what we're looking at is the downtown parking district, right? And with physical roadway characteristics such as on-street parking, curb extensions, narrow travel lanes, 10-foot travel lanes, which is smaller than typically within the town of Truckee, speeds are typically less than 25 miles per hour. So in conclusion, just to kind of summarize again the three-pronged approach here, NACDOT's recommendation for daylighting with the use of a curb extension improves drivers' visibility of pedestrians at crosswalks. There have been no traffic incidents involving pedestrians in or adjacent to marked or unmarked crosswalks where parking would be restricted by AB 413. And finally, reduced vehicle speeds within the downtown parking district due to roadway characteristics, again, support this recommendation. So to summarize, staff recommend that a local ordinance be established to reduce the threshold from 15 feet to 5 feet when a curb extension is present. No parking will be removed within the downtown parking district if the recommended threshold is adopted. The minimum distance where parking is currently allowed is 6 feet. So that was the shortest distance from crosswalk to established parking stall in downtown currently. So if we lose 5 feet, or if we move it to 5 feet, we would not lose any within the downtown parking district. And then where curb extensions are not present, parking will be prohibited consistent with AB 413. There are approximately 4 parking stalls that will be removed throughout Truckee. And you can see here on the next slide, they're located at the Old Gateway Center. The Tahoe Forest has been notified that we will be, if approved, we will be requiring the removal of these 4 parking stalls. This is also a little bit of a housekeeping item I'd like to discuss. I made a mistake in the staff report and the ordinance and miswrote the number of total parking spots in Truckee. So, you can kind of see here in the staff report, I had previously written this total of 16 parking spots that were within that threshold. It's actually 15. And then we identified that 9 parking spots in downtown would be lost instead of 10. And then the same thing in the ordinance. Actually, I put 17 there. Again, total brain fart on my fault, on myself here. It's actually 15, and then additionally, the 9 spots would be lost in downtown instead of 10. So finally, the recommended action, as allowed by AB 413, to establish a local threshold, introduce Ordinance 2024-06, reducing the minimum distance between parking spaces and crosswalks from 15 feet to 5 feet where curb extensions are present, with staff recommended updates, my previous slide. And with that, are there any questions?
And great job, Blake. That was your first presentation to council. Second, sorry.
We take away the applause.
Who wants to start? Up to you. Thank you, Blake. You answered my question quite well in the written questions and answers. I don't have any questions. So, how about public comment? Okay. You have a public comment? Oh, please come up to the podium, state your name, 3-minute maximum.
Oh, I'll be way less than that. Hi,
Okay.
I'm Katie Heckendorn, and my question is just why 5 feet instead of 6 if you already had 6 established before?
Okay, Will, that's you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We'll go ahead and pass that on. We'll reopen council questioning. Why 5 feet instead of 6?
We decided 5 because it was just kind of a round number, kind of easier to establish 5 feet instead of 6. Dan, maybe you wanted to speak a little bit on that. We had, no, I figured that was kind of
That's
what
it?
we, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's what we kind of came up with.
We like 5s, 10s, 15s, and 20s, right?
Okay, so that conforms to the way Public Works measures. You have a 5-foot pole, not a 6-foot.
Yeah, we only have tape measures in 5-foot-long increments. so-
Okay, thank you. Isn't that also, okay, that's fine. Any follow-up questions? Okay, we had public comment. Let's go to discussion.
I'm happy to make a motion that we approve. Can you go back to that we establish our local threshold by introducing ordinance 2024-06, reducing the minimum distance between parking spaces, crosswalks from 15 feet to 5 feet where curb extensions are present, with staff recommended updates.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, passes 3-0. Thank you, Blake. Yeah. Oh, yes, let's take a break. We have 2 discussion items left. One's on the in lieu fees in the workforce housing, and the other will be on the transient occupancy tax and the short-term rental ordinance. But let's take 5 minutes right now before we go on with those. Yeah. Were you wishing for 6 feet?
No, I was just curious if you'd already established a 6 foot, why change it?
Got it. Yes. Well, thanks for being here. We done now?
Tom, are we ready back there? Okay. We're getting ready to start. I don't want you to miss anything. Okay, back from the recess, and now it's time for item 7.5. That's the Affordable Housing in lieu fee and workshop housing ordinance. Yumi, want to take away?
Good evening. It's good to see you again, and I'm glad you were here again to talk about the affordable housing in lieu fee and the workforce housing ordinance. As you know, this is the annual review, and just to give you a quick refresher about our affordable housing requirements. Affordable housing is required for all residential projects. 15% of all the units within a residential project are required to be deed restricted for affordable housing. Non-residential projects that generate more than 7 employees are also required to provide affordable housing or workforce housing. For smaller projects, the developer can elect to pay to fulfill their affordable housing requirements through payment of an in lieu fee. And small projects are defined as projects that are 6 parcels or units or smaller, commercial projects that are less than 10,000 square feet, industrial projects that are less than 20,000 square feet. For larger projects, it's at the town's discretion. Developer can request to pay a full in lieu fee for all of the units, but it would be at the town's discretion whether it's the community development director as the review authority or planning commission or ultimately town council. And payment of an in lieu fee is allowed when a fraction of a housing unit is required by the affordable housing ordinance. So if 3.2 units are required, the developer would be required typically to build the 3 affordable housing units and then they could pay a 20% of an in lieu fee to fulfill the 0.2 requirement for the affordable housing. Alternatively, the developer can elect to build that 1 extra affordable housing unit. So in 2017, the town council adopted a streamlined update process for the in lieu fee based on a baseline created by BAE. Each year, we update that last year's calculation by applying 3 factors to the previous year's number. And those 3 factors are the changes in home values, single-family homes within the town of Truckee, based on Tahoe Sierra Board of Realtors information, changes in construction costs based on engineering news records information, and then we ultimately adjust the number based on changes in Nevada County income limits. And that streamlined process was adopted in 2017. As part of that process, the council also directed staff to do a check-in in 2022, see if we want to continue the streamlined process. And we did that actually in 2021. So in 2021, 2022, and 2023, your council directed staff to defer the larger discussion on housing policies and maybe update a larger update to this affordable housing in lieu fee process to after the 2040 general plan process, which we've completed. But we also wanted to defer to a larger discussion as part of the housing element update, which we're anticipating kicking off in the next year. So at this moment, staff is recommending that we continue with that streamlined process. And tonight, the 3 factors that we discussed previously, we're seeing that the single-family median home price has gone up 12.4% from 2023 to $1.3 million. The construction cost has gone down per engineering news record by 7.7%, and then the Nevada County income limit has remained the same since 2023, although I note that in 2023 there was a large increase from 2022 by 14%. So those are the 3 factors we used as part of our streamlined calculation. So looking at using those factors and putting them in our streamlined calculation process, we found that tonight, the calculation staff is recommending is to adopt the $136,000, around $137,000 as the in lieu fee for 2024. That's based on a 20% increase over 2023's number. But I would like to note that in 2023, the council chose to not adopt the recommended number based on the streamlined calculation process, which was $116,000. Which was actually a 14% decrease from the 2022 number. And that was based on council's determination that that decrease didn't truly reflect what was actually going on in the market, in the housing market, and that decrease of that substantial in nature was not appropriate at that time. So that while the $116,000 was proposed and recommended by staff per the calculation process, council elected to not adopt a new number and kept the $134,000 number that was adopted in 2022. Council may consider alternatives to this calculation, You can look at applying that 19.5% number on top of the 2022 number, or you can direct staff to back off and maybe do a more comprehensive study rather than wait for the housing element. In the past year, the town collected $107,000 in lieu fees. And that's from the Boulders, 1 single-family residential unit and 5 multifamily residential units, Crested Construction industrial project, and Start House, which is a commercial structure being constructed over by the Crossroads shopping center. There are about 7 projects that were approved, that are approved without, but have not yet started construction, that have in lieu fee requirements, and that's Zurich Place Office, which is a fully commercial building, Ski Slope Townhomes, which is 4 units, I believe, 4 residential units, Jorga Ranch Parcel 2, which is a mixed-use project with industrial and residential, the Friends of Tahoe Truckee Waldorf School, which is a school, Trailside Townhomes, which has 6 residential units, Silver Creek Estates, which has 40 units, and then Benna Multifamily Residential has 3 residential units. As part of our annual review, we also look at our workforce housing ordinance. We do a quick check-in to see what's been happening there. As always, the council can direct us to look at changes to this ordinance and bring back a comprehensive analysis of it. In the past, we have council has directed staff to defer that as part of the housing element, especially since it's coming up in the next year. We're kickstarting it within the next year. As a reminder, the workforce housing ordinance requires non-residential projects to provide a portion of the housing needed for the new employees the project generates. And that employee generation number is based on the type of use and square footage. So retail uses, we say 1 employee is generated every 500 square feet. So for a 1,000 square foot building, 2 employees are generated by that project per our development code calculation. And then there's a sliding scale for how many workforce housing units are required per employee generated. Small projects are exempt from this requirement, so less than 3,500 square feet for a commercial project. And projects less than 10,000 square feet for a commercial project, for instance, is required to pay an in lieu fee. But we're doing an annual check-in to see where we are today, what's been required and what's been approved in the past year. And as I stated, the council can choose to initiate amendments at any point. The workforce housing ordinance in the past year has generated 3 projects. We've approved 3 projects that have been required to provide workforce housing, primarily in lieu fees. As I stated, the Zurich Place Office project is required to provide workforce housing of 70% of an in lieu fee. The school is 58% of an in lieu fee. And Tahoe Donner is required to pay 61% of an in lieu fee or deed restrict 1 existing market rate unit for workforce housing, which was approved by the Planning Commission and the Town Council. And I believe the second option is what they will eventually elect to do. Other projects that have previously been approved and are constructed that have workforce housing requirements are Grocery Outlet, Coburn Crossing, Quality Automotive, High Altitude Fitness, Crestwood Construction, and Start House. So tonight, staff's recommendation is to conduct this public hearing and accept public comment on this Affordable Housing in Lieu Fee Program update, accept an update on the Workforce Housing Ordinance, and adopt resolution number 2024-65 to approve the updated in lieu fee of $136,851 based on the short-term calculation fee we adopted in 2017, and continue directing staff to complete a comprehensive update to the Affordable Housing and lieu fee policies as part of the housing element update. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Yumi. Council questions? You want to start?
Sure.
Councilmember Romack.
Thank you, Yumi. Appreciate this. I know we see this every year, and so I should know the answer to this. But for the projects that have been approved that will have to be paying an in lieu fee, will they have to pay the in lieu fee that was in place when the project was approved or when they go to construction? Just curious.
At the time of building permit.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's my only question for now.
Councilmember Glovestad.
Thank you. Yeah, Kira did her legislative update and talked about new legislation that requires us to wait to collect this fee until certificate of occupancy. So that'll apply to this going forward?
Yes, we'll have to take a look at the legislation in more detail, but I believe so. I believe all fees for those types of projects that fall under that, the criteria of that legislation, yes.
Okay. And then what are some of the examples of how this fee has been used to support workforce housing?
We've primarily, this money has gone into an affordable housing in lieu fee fund, which is separate from our Measure K funds, and has been with the town longer than the Measure K funds. And in the past, we've used it to leverage, to help fund infrastructure for affordable housing, like Hennis Flats and Frischman Hollow 1, and then also to help developers leverage funds for larger assistance from the state or federal government.
Great, thank you.
You mean last year I asked a number of detailed questions about terminology and that sort of thing. This year I have much bigger questions. And the first one is I'm trying to understand to what extent is the inclusionary in lieu fee generating or impeding construction of new housing? After all these years, what's your sense of?
The in lieu fee as it exists today is quite a bit less than what the in lieu fee typically is in terms of funding the gap between what an affordable housing project costs and a market rate unit costs. The in lieu fee, I believe, as in and of itself, I believe that developers prefer the in lieu fee than the construction of the actual units, which has a much less cost and then less commitment, particularly for commercial builders who are not used to being residential developers or landlords. So I believe that any developer or applicant who would come into the town would say any of our requirements, and our affordable housing requirements as a whole, is an impediment to construction and costs additional money.
And then why would we revisit the analysis of what in lieu fee we should be charging? Why would we address it now rather than wait until revisions to the housing element?
I would not recommend revisiting it now. I would recommend doing it as part of the housing element, seeing if the affordable housing in lieu fee is actually doing its job, if it's helping our community, particularly looking at that affordable housing fee and seeing if we want to expand our analysis. If we think that the number or the process we've used is appropriate, or if we want to look at a different pathway to seeing if affordable housing in lieu fees can be calculated in a different way, or if we want to require construction fully and not do an in lieu fee. So there's a different pathways for us to go down to see what would be most beneficial to our community without necessarily impeding construction of all housing development within our community. So I would recommend that we defer it to the housing element process so we could do some initial focus our staff time on the larger picture, and then rather than move forward with, I guess, deferring our time now before and piecemealing it in.
Can you tell me over the last few years to what extent the in lieu fee has been used in place of building new dwelling units on the larger projects? Is it 6 or more? Is that where the cutoff is?
We typically, the development code supports building actual units.
Right.
So the only project I know of that was a large project that was allowed to provide in lieu fees as opposed to building actual affordable housing units was the old Greenwood Amendment, where they transferred a lot of their projects from fractional units to whole ownership units, creating more density in the project, and then they provided $1 million to the town for in lieu fees.
Yeah. Do you know offhand, are there other studies out there for California municipalities that have imposed the in lieu fee that are going to provide us some guidance in the eventual analysis that we do?
Yes, there are, yes. This is a very normal thing that's in other communities, and when we hired BAE, they were well-versed in the process. What we did is we created the gap analysis that's within the BAE study, but we diverted and went in a different direction when the council felt that the amount that was being proposed at the time would impede construction of actual other market rate housing units. So I think it is a normal practice of municipalities.
Yes, okay. Any follow-up questions?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So delaying the broader discussion on the calculation and would be tied in with the housing element, or is that correct? That we're
I think we'd have to talk about the bigger picture if we want to continue with these ordinances or not, and if we want to change our workforce housing ordinance and what that might look like. And then once we get through that process, we'd have to step back and do the dirty work or the more detailed work of doing the study and hiring a consultant.
okay. So expectation setting, we probably wouldn't look at the change in calculation fee for the next few years because that process will take some time.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And just finally, what we're looking at is increasing, the staff's recommendation is increase the in lieu fee from about $134,413 to $136,851.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to discussion. Who wants to start? Anyone?
I'm happy to. So thank you, Yumi. I think I really appreciate the staff report. I think the tables and the historical trends are so valuable in understanding where we started with this and how it's evolved over the years. So I just want to express my appreciation to that. I'd also love somebody to tell the contractors bidding my projects that costs have come down. That'd be really helpful. So I think having seen this now 6 times, I wish 6 years ago we would have considered some changes, but we're kind of on a trajectory now, and I do agree with the philosophy that we need to get through this housing element, and then I would really like to see a robust evaluation of what this is accomplishing, how it's impacting our community. I think our desire and the type of housing that that our community needs now and we are trying to incentivize has also shifted drastically since this program was initially envisioned. So I'm anxious for that. So I will just express that to staff that I wish we could get going on it now, but I think that your recommendation is a logical sequence. So I support maintaining the current schedule and doing the comprehensive study in that order. And with that, I think the logic used here is reasonable and would support the adoption of this new fee and the workforce housing.
Thank you. I agree it makes sense to wait till we're doing our comprehensive process. I did just ask that last question because I think we said we'll start it next year. So for us all to know, that doesn't mean we will change the calculation next year. And I appreciate Councilmember Klove your comments, like to have more data, to understand exactly how this is impacting, because it really is a balance. We want to ensure we're bringing in fees to help develop housing while also not restricting the type of development that, again, we all would like to see based on our general plan. So I'm comfortable going with staff's recommendation. I did just want to highlight, in looking at the list, for council to be thinking about in each year when the calculation shows there would be a decrease. We've never gone that way and we've held it steady. But for us to just be aware of that, let's hope we don't see big market swings anytime soon, but to keep that in mind and to be open to, if it's needed, to be okay with moving things down at some points. I know we had reasons to not go with the recommendation last year, but I think, again, that's just important for us to recognize too. So I'm happy to go along with staff's recommendation at this time.
I agree with my colleagues on proceeding with staff's recommendation. I do have share Councilmember Klofstad's concerns, which are partly implied. It's a big task figuring this out. Like I agree with what Yumi said about needing to look at it in the broader context of our housing overall. But the housing element in many ways is very formulaic, and I'm concerned about is trying to check all the boxes under the formula and still having the resources and energy to really make the comprehensive look at housing in terms of what direction we ought to be going for our own town policies, not just what HCD requires, but what we think is best for Truckee. So I don't know what to say except, gee, I hope we can get an early start and generate conversations about what might work in Truckee. Okay, anything further before we go to a motion?
I'll jump in. We conducted our public hearing and we accepted the update on the workforce housing ordinance. So I make a motion we adopt resolution 2024-65 to approve an updated affordable housing in lieu fee based on the affordable housing in lieu fee short-term calculation adopted in 2017, which it will be set at $136,851. And that we wait for our comprehensive update to the in lieu fee policies and affordable housing as part of the housing element update.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Passes 3-0. Let's move on. Thank you. Let's move on to our last item under discussion on the agenda. This is the hosted rental ordinance. And looks like Hillary, are you doing the presentation?
I am.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council, or acting Mayor, that is, and Council. The purpose of this agenda item this evening is threefold, and all three of the reasons for it relate to short-term rentals and hosted rental programs. As a reminder, a short-term rental is a rental of a lodging unit, generally a whole home, for fewer than 31 nights. The town has adopted an annual registration process and a robust suite of operating standards for short-term rentals. By comparison, a hosted rental is a rental of a single bedroom within a housing unit that is occupied by a full-time resident while the resident is living there. So it's renting out a bedroom while you are home. Currently, hosted rentals are required to complete a one-time registration with the town for the purposes of paying transient occupancy tax. However, there's no annual or ongoing registration requirement, and there are limited operating standards. So at the October 8th Town Council meeting, staff received policy direction from Council regarding amendments to Chapter 5.02 of Municipal Code to incorporate a registration process and operating standards for hosted rentals. Right now, that chapter only addresses short-term rentals, and hosted rentals are exempt. Staff have taken that policy direction and drafted an ordinance to provide these hosted rental amendments for Council's consideration tonight, and that's the first part of tonight's agenda item. Second, in the course of implementing the short-term rental and transient occupancy tax programs, staff occasionally find areas where clarifications or minor amendments to the municipal code would be beneficial. The recommended ordinance also incorporates a handful of these cleanup amendments to those two chapters, which we'll walk through tonight. And third, we'll hold a public hearing to adopt a resolution to add a hosted rental registration fee and hosted rental fines to the town-wide fee schedule, which would align with the recommended amendments to Chapter 5.02. So starting with hosted rentals, the first suite of requirements addressed in the hosted rental recommended regulations include a registration process, which would require registrants to renew every 3 years. We received direction from council to have that period be somewhere in the 3 to 5 year range, as opposed to short-term rentals, which requires renewal every year. Requires a registration fee of $100 to cover the cost of registration processing, and would specify the information required in the application. Per council direction, we've also incorporated a maximum occupancy for hosted rentals of 2 people, which would exclude children under 13 in that count, and specified requirements for the information that must be included in all hosted rental advertisements. By monitoring the advertisements, that's one of the key tools in regulating both hosted rentals and short-term rentals. The operational standards incorporated for hosted rentals include requiring that an individual within the property owner household must be designated as the hosted rental contact person. And the standards specify that the individual must live on site during the rental and be available by phone 24 hours a day if there are any complaints received, and establishes standards for the timely response to any complaints that come in. Operational standards also require that on-site parking shall be provided, and establish fire safety operational standards within the home, requiring that the property owner sign a self-certification form and acknowledgement of part of the registration process. And the ordinance also prohibits hosted rentals that contain a kitchen, cooking facility, wet bar, or sink within the designated bedroom. This was an area where we had a significant discussion at the last council meeting. The reasoning behind that is that once a wet bar or sink or cooking facility is added to a bedroom, it essentially becomes a junior accessory dwelling unit, and council had previously provided direction not to allow short-term renting of accessory dwelling units. So that was a reason why that change was made in 2022 in Development Code. Council also provided direction that any bedrooms that were registered as hosted rentals prior to that Development Code change in 2022, but that do have a cooking facility, sink, wet bar, would be allowed to continue operating as a hosted rental. Consistent with short-term rental regulations, the ordinance also provides parameters for the registration, certificate, suspension, or revocation when there's non-compliance, including providing that if a certificate is revoked, the operator cannot reapply for 1 year. And consistent with STR regulations, the ordinance, as proposed, would prohibit hosted rentals in accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units, as well as in detached living areas, mobile homes, manufactured homes, RVs, and tiny homes that are not fixed to a permanent foundation, as well as any of the above types of units that are located in a mobile home or RV park. And per council direction at our October meeting, the ordinance would allow hosted rentals within multifamily residential units. So if council proceeds with this first reading tonight, I just wanted to run through the next steps we anticipate for hosted rentals. We would bring a second reading of the ordinance and adoption on December 10th. And if adopted, the ordinance would be effective 30 days after adoption. In January, we would then do an outreach effort directly to our hosted rental operators. Right now we have 26, so it's a fairly small number, letting them know that about the ordinance changes and information on what the registration process will look like. The ordinance would officially take effect January 9th, which is 30 days after adoption. Beginning February 1st, we would open the application period for new hosted rental certificates. The old certificates would expire March 31st. New certificates would be effective April 1st. And after March 31st, if you are registered with the old transient occupancy registration certificate and wanted to continue renting, you would need to receive the new type of transient occupancy certificate with an expiration date. There are some inconsistencies between some of these changes proposed and some of the regulations we have in development code. So as part of a future development code update, we would be making some adjustments to make sure that the code aligns. So that's part one. Now on to part two of this agenda item. I'll provide a brief summary of the cleanup amendments that are proposed in both chapters 3.24 and 5.02. Chapter 3.24 pertains to our transient occupancy tax programs. In section 3.24060, related to registration, there's some language in there now that allows a 30-day grace period between when you start advertising and when you need to register for a transient occupancy certificate. That's some older language that was left over from a earlier version when we were just starting to implement short-term rental registration requirements in order to get people on board with registering. So staff have recommended to remove that language from that chapter. Under penalties and interest, we're recommending adding language that would allow a process to request a waiver of late fees and interest and specify that the tax administrator shall have the authority to grant such waivers for good cause. This is a procedure that we have had in place but hasn't been clearly spelled out in the chapter. So it's intended to provide some clarity on exactly what that process looks like. And then under the section on failure to collect and report, staff are recommending language that states that notices for failure to pay transient occupancy tax may be submitted by electronic mail to operators if they're registered with the town, and we have electronic mail communication with them already. Now on to chapter 5.02, cleanup amendments. We have made changes throughout the chapter related to some of the changes that we've incorporated on hosted rentals. There were several sections where we specified definitions, certificate requirements, operational standards, and we needed to break out sort of how those things affect short-term rentals versus hosted rentals. So in those sections, we've made some adjustments to create sort of separate sections on short-term rentals versus hosted rentals throughout the document. Under the section on local contact person for short-term rentals, staff have proposed modifying the requirement for the contact person to respond in person if there is a complaint. The way it works now is if there is or before you've received a citation in a year, the response is required by phone. After you've received one citation in a year, for any future complaints, the local contact person is required to respond in person. Staff are recommending changing that requirement so that you're required to respond in person up to one time in a 24-hour period. We have had a small number of properties where there's repeat complaints on the same issue, sometimes multiple times within a day. And staff are recommending that it's appropriate to, if the contact person has already gone out on that complaint that day, not require them to go out a second or third time on that complaint. And finally, under trash collection, staff have become aware that there are some multifamily properties that have difficulty complying with the current regulation, which is that each property must have a bear shed that can contain at a minimum of 2 trash containers. We are aware that in some multifamily properties, the property owner may share a bear shed with a neighboring property and may not have control of the of the land where installation of an additional trash container or a bear-proof trash container would be able to go. So staff have recommended for those properties allowing the property to have one trash can within a shared bear shed and then a second trash can in another secure place such as a garage or indoor area of the home. We've also recommended a few minor updates to the fire and life safety standards. These are in response to requests from Truckee Fire Protection District, just to align with updates to their code. And then under the appeal process, we've recommended some clarifications to that process, including changing the term tax administrator to hearing officer, just because it is more commonly understood. Specifying a deadline for submittal of the appeal deposit for an appeal to town council. Right now, there's a deadline to submit the request to appeal, but then there's no deadline for the payment to be made. So we could, and we don't actually hold the appeal hearing until the payment is made. So we could theoretically have sort of a 3-year period between when somebody requests it and decides to proceed with the appeal hearing. And then also, provided some clarity on requesting that the appellant, requiring that the appellant rather submit an appeal request form, and on that form specify the reason for the appeal, which will make it easier for the appeal hearing officer to respond appropriately and sort of look through the rationale that they plan to present.
And technically, the hearing before the hearing officer is not necessarily an appeal, it's just a hearing, and then the appeal comes later before council. And one of the changes is to try to make this consistent with the normal appellate standard that you can't introduce new evidence or new arguments on appeal. So whatever the appellant or the property owner wants to raise, they need to raise with the hearing officer first, instead of saying one thing to the hearing officer and then bringing up new issues later before the council.
And on to the third part of this agenda item. Tonight we will hold a hearing to adopt Resolution 2024-67, which would add new hosted rental program related fees to the townwide fee schedule. Those fees, which are outlined here, include a $100 registration fee, which would cover the cost of administering the registration process, as well as an administrative fine schedule. Per council direction at the October meeting, that fine schedule is higher than the current fine schedule, but significantly lower than the short-term rental fine schedule. Finally, I wanted to touch on a few specific topics in Chapter 5.02 that were brought up in some of the excellent council questions that we received for this evening. These are topics that council may wish to weigh in on tonight. So the first is the definition of hosted rentals. The recommendation that came through in that question was to simplify this definition because there's another section within the chapter that goes into more specificity on the requirements for hosted rental. So I've shown here the recommended red line to help simplify that definition. The second proposed amendment to what was published is related to the hosted rental contact person. Again, the recommendation was to simplify the definition because the specificity on the requirements is outlined later in that chapter. There's also an issue was raised on what does it mean that the hosted rental contact person is required to reside on site for the entirety of this stay. Does that mean that they can't leave the home? Does that mean that they can go within a certain distance of the home, but only for a certain period? I think it's a great suggestion that we provide a bit more clarity on what we mean by that. The recommended change to that would be to change the requirement that the person be on site or reside on site for the entirety of the stay to during the stay. And then council may also wish to weigh in on more specific requirements. One of the suggestions recommended in the question was, would we want to consider requiring the contact person to remain within a certain distance? Maybe that's 60 miles. Another idea that staff came up with today was, would we require that the contact person be on site during certain overnight hours? For example, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., which is the quiet hours that we have within the ordinance. Those are just a couple of ideas the council may want to discuss tonight. And then the final issue that was raised through questions I'd like to address is the definition for the term operator. This is one that we missed in the update, so thank you to whoever submitted that question. The operator definition should be modified to apply to both operators of short-term rentals and or hosted rentals. So staff are recommending that we make that one change this evening. So with that, the recommended actions tonight are to introduce ordinance 2024-08, amending chapters 3.24 and 5.02 of the municipal code, to find the adoption of the ordinance exempt from CEQA, and to conduct a public hearing and adopt resolution 2024-67, approving additions to the townwide fee schedule for hosted rental application fee and hosted rental administrative fines. That's all I have for you tonight.
Questions? Councilmember Romack.
Sure. Thank you very much, Hillary, for all those details and all the questions. We got a public comment, and there was a question around what type of documentation would be acceptable in providing proof that the person has a legal bedroom. And I think from my reading of the staff report, and maybe it didn't require any sort of survey site map. It was kind of clear that it didn't have to be, I don't know, something professional and expensive, but I guess I want to understand what would be required, because I think this person had a concern, would they have to go through extra steps to show they have a legal bedroom?
Yes, we are. What we are proposing is not requiring a professionally drawn legal site map. It could be a hand-drawn diagram, site map, just something to identify this is sort of the floor plan of the home. This is the bedroom that I'm requesting to be able to hosted rent, and then photos of the bedroom so that we can look at records to verify if the requested bedroom is a legal bedroom.
Thank you. And this commenter also asked about, I think council had provided input on 3 to 5 years. This person was asking about why not 5 years? Is there a reason staff kind of decided 3 years for the registration time period for a hosted rental?
Staff recommended 3 years just because there's some important steps that happen at renewal. So certifying that you've checked and you meet all of the fire code requirements for life safety is one. It would provide an opportunity for the town to verify that, yes, this person still owns their property. They're still providing proof of being a full-time resident. So that's why staff were recommending the shorter period of 3 years. However, if council provided direction to go with 4 years or 5 years, staff would be okay with that.
Thank you. That is all.
Councilmember Klosstad.
Those were a few of my questions. The only one I have left is you had a slide where you were talking about the contact person must submit a response to the complaint. And in all other ways, we're aligning with the regular STR. So I'm assuming that one item will also align with that. Even
That's
though
correct.
they're on site, they will still have, I think it was 24 hours to submit their
Yes.
written response.
So they can either do it by phone or through email, just responding to let us know that received a complaint on parking. I've looked into it. This is how this has been resolved.
Great. Thank you. It's my only question.
Hillary, do you remember did council ever discuss what we meant by entirety of the stay? Am I just forgetting a discussion we may have had about the meaning of that word?
I don't think that the word entirety of this day was used during the council discussion. The intent that staff took from the October discussion was to require that the host must be present living at the home. So it doesn't mean that you're a full-time resident and you leave town for the weekend and rent out the bedroom. So staff's attempt to capture that was to say you must be living there for the entirety of the stay, meaning not just the day they're checking in, but for the whole stay. But with the council question that we received, realized that that's a bit ambiguous and could use some clarity in what that means.
Okay. And then one thought of staff, I think you mentioned, was having specify a nighttime requirement that matches what'd you call it, our curfew?
The quiet hours.
The quiet hours, thank you. Okay. And then I think you answered all my questions in your staff presentation or in the written responses on the other items. I wanted to say I really appreciate the staff report, especially the section on the regulations that was, I think on maybe the second page, hosted rental regulations, the bulleted items describing what was an issue. That was really helpful. Really compliments to you and or Rosie or both of you.
Thank you. I will pass that on to Rosie.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are all my questions. Okay, is there any public comment? No? Okay. Well, let's move on to discussion. Who wants to start?
I'm happy to jump in.
Okay.
I appreciate, staff's work on making a lot of these changes, and I think the hosted rental provisions fit with our discussion a few weeks ago. I support keeping it at 3 years to do the registration for hosted rental. It seems, to your point, Hillary, that there are reasons why it makes sense to check on it. It's $100. While $100 is not nothing, it's not a huge burden we're asking of people. On the time of people must be there during a stay, I'm not comfortable setting hours. We have a lot of various jobs in our community, and nurses or police officers that work overnight or firefighters. And so I'm more comfortable that something to the effect of you must reside there during the stay, rather than making it super detailed on exactly when you must be there. Again, I would point back to, I think in the last time you brought this forward, we haven't had very many complaints on these, so it's not that we have a lot of problems. So I'd be comfortable leaving it at you must reside during the stay. And if we find there are people that are doing things that maybe are not the intent, then we can look at making it more restrictive. But that would be my feedback for now.
All right. Yeah, I I agree. Great staff report. Very good cleanup items. I agree with all of them. I think that creates more consistency and also gives us the control that we're trying to achieve here to protect our community. Staff addressed council's concern and direction from the October meeting, so I think that's great. I agree with Councilmember Romack. I think the 3-year intervals is appropriate. I am also hesitant to set additional restrictions, definitely not a distance restriction. I just don't see how we would enforce that anyway. These are not problem childs. If this becomes a problem, obviously, we're always willing to reconsider it, but I don't see a need to overly restrict this at this time. So I think the changes in the language suggestion are appropriate to that they'll reside there, and I'm fine with moving forward with that.
I agree. I don't know if I should throw this back to staff. I think what all three of us are saying is we don't want to unduly restrict a homeowner where we haven't seen any indication of there being a problem. I had been thinking in terms of the single elderly individual who is renting a room because they need the income. I'm imagining people who are renting specifically because they need the income. Otherwise, you know, your privacy is being invaded. I don't see it being so much as a profit motive as a necessity motive. And these same people are going to need to be able to get to an appointment or go grocery shopping or that sort of thing. So I'm fully on board on that one. Not surprisingly, I was the one that was also recommending that you strike the verbiage and this business about changing entirety to during kind of makes the point for me. I'm trying to avoid duplication of the language just because as a practical matter, we want to try and reduce the amount of wording in a code so it's easier to understand for everybody, and then to avoid having to change language in 4 places because we've repeated it. So in a way, what I was proposing we strike is more of an example of a concern, but so after saying all that, what are your thoughts on the striking the language in those 2 other provisions?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, how should we phrase this motion?
I think it's what is on the screen here, and also accepting the markups per the presentation. So we're really not changing anything.
Correct. It would be accepting the proposed red lines.
Yes.
Yeah, accepting. Okay, we ready?
Yes.
Ready. Okay. So I move that we have received the introduction of ordinance 2024-08, amending chapters 3.24, the transient occupancy tax, and 5.02, transient rental of residential units of the Truckee Municipal Code. That we find the adoption of the ordinance exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15060C2-3 and 15061B3, 15301 and 15378. And that having conducted a public hearing, we adopt resolution 2024-67, approving additions to the townwide fee schedule for a hosted rental application fee and hosted rental administrative fines.
With the redlining?
With the red lines for the presentation.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it's 3-0. Oh. Okay. Okay, so we finished the discussion items. We allowed for public comment. So why don't we move on to council member reports? Who wants to start?
I'm ready.
Oh, council member Klostad.
I think the 3 of us up here attended the Truckee Springs and West River Street ribbon cutting. Ah, that was fun. Beautiful day. Last time I've seen the dirt. I attended the CTA Governing Partners meeting. We continue to evolve our progress on committee development and presentation developments, and working towards our next round of grants and support letters. CTA, I also attended the CTA/100% renewable/CCL webinar that was on electrifying our buildings specifically to the Tahoe Truckee region. And this was presented by Blake Hershaft. It was extremely informative. I hope you've had a chance to watch it, and anybody who's going to consider any of these potential programs. It was very informative. I attended a Civic Well board meeting and, of course, the chamber mixer at Bar of America, where they showed off their new expanded area. That is super cool, and hopefully y'all got to go underground and see the tunnel. That was pretty cool. Good.
Great ribbon cutting, as Councilmember Clove said, or ribbon cuttings. I attended the Housing Horizons event that Vice Mayor Zabriskie and Mayor Pallavi were at. It was a great opportunity for town staff and a few of us council members to talk with folks in the housing realm, architects, developers, and whatnot. And I think there was some great conversations and discussed the Edmonds Loft RFI. So that was great. And then this last week, seems like lifetimes ago, R2SC, we had our meeting. We had a lot to discuss. We did not get through everything, but the group did move forward with the Economic Vitality Committee adjusting an RFI slightly, but to start looking for some catalyst projects or folks who own property along the West River Street, East River Street corridor to potentially be able to start working with the town and a consultant on ideas for the future. So I don't believe that has hit the streets yet. It has. So if there are folks that own property in that corridor and are interested, it's a really simple application, and you can just write down if you have an idea, and then there will be an interview process that the Economic Vitality Committee will go through. But I thought that was great that we're moving forward on that. That is it.
Okay. I attended a county sponsored seniors roundtable that Hardy Bullock, our local supervisor, presided over, with a number of representatives from agencies and nonprofits meeting to discuss how we can improve conditions for the senior members of our town. And it was reported that the census, the 2020 census, shows that 17% of our population is over 65 years of age. There's a shortage of in-home supportive services for seniors through the county-run program, attributed to the pay scale, which is $16.90 an hour. The representative for the in-home supportive services pointed out you can make well over $20, up $25 at a fast food restaurant. And so that makes it difficult. There's representatives from the Tahoe Forest Hospital District were there acknowledging they have no geriatric medical providers. Cambridge Housing had its president from Portland in attendance, along with their 3 affordable housing managers, pointing out that they have multiple years long waiting list for housing. It was mentioned, though, on behalf of the town, that we have approved the Estates Meadows, which would add 30 more dwelling units once the developer gets moving. And then Andrea was at the meeting. We pointed out the town can help give more attention to what the town can do within its authority to improve the living situation and community connection for our seniors. Attended the housing happy hour at Moody's, as Council Member Romack mentioned, I believe. Did you mention it too? You were there, weren't you? Okay. And I don't need to repeat what you said. Yes, the R2SC met. I wanted to add that also the River Health and Accessibility Action Team presented their memo on what they're recommending in terms of riparian restoration and stormwater treatment and access. And what was very valuable and informative is they provided a map showing the different areas, principally the floodplain, where they're recommending restoration. And then along the lines of what Council Member Romack mentioned, the Economic Vitality Team reported on the catalyst projects, and now we're going out to see who applies. attended the Truckee North Tahoe Transportation Management Association meeting. That included presentation of a draft strategic plan on demand management, and then experts retained by Placer County spoke about the bus lanes that might go along Highway 267 and Highway 89. Until this report came out, what appeared to be the consensus was that we wanted to have a reversible bus lane down the middle of the two highways, and the experts pointed out that we would only be adding 6 feet of width if we went to lanes on the edge of each side of the road going in opposite directions, and that approach would also solve a lot of logistic issues. So the experts are leaning towards recommending bus lanes on each side of the road, going with the flow and traffic on those sides. Dan Wilkins asked about whether they weren't looking at this development of these lanes and segments, indicating wouldn't you just go from Truckee to Palisades first, and they acknowledged they would. I think implicit in that was the tremendous cost involved in putting in these lanes, particularly on Highway 89 South because of the topography and having the river right next to the highway. It's a big, big hurdle. And then someone pointed out that the mouse hole was really an elephant in the room. And then went to Veterans Day, and we had a good turnout. It was really exciting weather, especially when the easy ups, when the wind hit the easy ups and pushed out the water. So you had a little waterfall coming out that you had to kind of anticipate. Just made it all that more exciting. That's all I have to report. Okay. Oh, when is the next meeting? Oh, not till December.
December 10th. So everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Exactly. Have a great Thanksgiving, staff, council members, all of you in the public still awake and watching. Thank you, everyone. Meeting's adjourned.